Entertainment begins with a journey. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Saipan. What do people value most when chasing celebrities these days? Looks? Talent? Romance? Or singing voice? Yukai possesses all of the qualities that influencers seek, and in fact, he excels in every one of them, even at the highest level. As a result, fans who once favored younger idols flock to join Yukai's fan groups, follow him on Weibo, and buy his novels, becoming his fans. After the singer's live broadcast, Yukai truly became famous. While Yukai welcomed the increase in Weibo followers, he actually didn't want too many people to know him. China was his homeland, and he had a wealth of skills and talents to acquire there. If he were to be recognized and surrounded by fans wherever he went, how could he concentrate on exploring the scenic spots? The Potala Palace had proven to Yukai that superficial browsing wouldn't reward him with anything, not even the slightest improvement in skills or talent. So, Yukai decided he should disappear for a while. The cold weather was just too much for him, so after handing his travelogue to Rip Culture, he boarded a plane to Saipan, where the temperature was currently between 26 and 31 degrees Celsius. The most important thing is that Chinese citizens can enter the island without a visa, and it is not far from China, making it the first choice for many Asian tourists to travel to the island. Yukai didn't think too much about it, as long as it was warm. The rainy season in Saipan in November has passed, so it can be said to be the golden season for traveling to Saipan. At a time when everyone is wearing autumn clothes, autumn trousers and down jackets, how comfortable it would be to stand on the beach and post a circle of friends in a swimsuit. The plane arrived at Kablar International Airport and landed smoothly, but the door did not open for a long time. After asking the flight attendant, I learned that the airport customs officers had not yet come to work, and I had to wait for them to arrive before I could get off the plane. It is said that this airport is very small, and there are small plane tours nearby during the day, so the planes arriving in Saipan take off and land at night, and there are no flights during the day. The customs officers here work according to the number of flights taking off and landing at night. After waiting for about half an hour, I was finally able to queue up for entry. Discover a new region, America, 300,000 yuan reward. Reward for English. A staff member, apparently Chinese, was maintaining order, speaking fluent Mandarin as he walked. Everyone line up. Don't cut in line, don't take photos, don't make phone calls. This flight was departing from China, so the passengers were mostly Chinese. However, there were a few exceptions. A Korean man, still on his phone, chatting loudly. Yukai didn't understand Korean and didn't know what he was saying. The Chinese staff member quickly ran over and warned him in English, "Sir, please turn off your phone, or customs will deny you entry." Koreans are also English-speaking, but their accents are a major problem. The man pointed at the staff member and cursed, "What are you, a tour guide, telling me? Why didn't I see the warning about not making phone calls? No phones, no photos. Are you a scam travel agency? I'll report you to the embassy." He hadn't realized the girl was an airport employee. Arrogance has its price. Customs auxiliary police soon arrived and took him away, reportedly to a dark cell for an hour. There's an idiom called killing a chicken to frighten the monkey. Someone was arrested, and the queue for entry documents fell silent. People chatted quietly, but the lines remained quiet. After successfully entering the country, Yukai exchanged $2,000 at the airport. As Yukai stepped out of the airport, the early morning sunshine of Saipan surprised him, its warm rays seemingly urging him to leave. Take off your clothes. Swimsuits are king here. The sea breeze, carrying a hint of crab, blew incessantly. It was strong, like the large fans in the cafeteria, rustling clothes against his skin. It would take about a week to complete all the tourist activities on Saipan, but Yukai was there to escape the cold. During his 45-day visa-free period, he wouldn't return to the mainland unless it was something important. However, escaping the cold on Saipan wasn't the right choice. Things were expensive there, about 4 times more expensive than in China. You see, many tourist attractions in China are expensive, so many people bring their own gear or spend the day there before eating. But Saipan is different. The entire island, including the surrounding islands, is a tourist attraction. There's no bargain to be had. The cheapest hotel in Saipan cost $70, and judging by the pictures of the interior, the amenities are quite poor. So Yukai simply chose the best hotel in Saipan. Although it cost $180 a day, the environment was definitely better than the cheaper options. The window opened to the ocean, and he had his own private beach. Outside the airport, there were a lot of cars. Yukai looked around for a taxi or a motorbike driver, but his eyes were immediately drawn to a row of colorful sports cars. How about renting one? Yukai loved to enjoy life. He wasn't exactly a spendthrift, but he didn't have the same mental constraints as the older generation. A sports car was once only a dream, but now it seemed practically possible. The most pressing issue standing between Yukai and a sports car was whether it would take him a year or two to earn enough money. He was getting carried away. Yukai chuckled self-deprecatingly, but his heart warmed. After obtaining the system, everything seemed to be better. He walked over to the rental shop and asked in English, "Excuse me, do I need an international driver's license to rent a car? Can a Chinese license be used?" If this were Europe or America, Yukai wouldn't have asked. But this was Saipan, primarily catering to Asian tourists. So, as one of Asia's major economies, perhaps a Chinese license could be used here. It seemed he'd need an international driver's license upon returning home. The owner, a rather shady Saipan native, said, "Yes, of course. Which one would you like?" The sports cars here were primarily Mustangs and Camaros, mostly four-seater convertibles with either scissor doors or standard doors. The scissor doors were retrofitted for great photo ops. Besides sports cars, there were also off-road vehicles, Wranglers, Hummers, and even the American Prado. Yukai rented a yellow Mustang with scissor doors. The car came fully fueled, but upon return, it needed to be topped up. A $100 deposit was a simple process. Half an hour later, Yukai was driving the stylish sports car on the highway. However, due to the strict speed limit, the advantages of the sports car could not be brought into play, and the only advantage left was its handsomeness. Saipan is not large in area, with only one main road, Beach Boulevard. It takes only half an hour to drive from north to south, so renting a car to travel around the island is quite convenient. You can also see a large number of sports cars of various colors parked on the roadside. Parking here is very free. As long as it does not occupy the road or the parking spaces for special vehicles, it can be parked anywhere. There is no trouble at all like parking in China. Yukai's current destination is Micro Beach, which is recognized as the most beautiful beach in Saipan. The hotel Yukai booked is also in this place, and today's daytime activities will be improvisations. But the most important project is learning to swim. Chapter 52: Learning to Swim. As a landlocked young man, the ocean held a mystery for Yukai, and mystery often carries a strong allure. Ireland is also an island, but its most beautiful scenery lies on land. So, even though Yukai had visited the ocean many times, he had never ventured for a swim. Unlike Ireland, Saipan's charm lay in its vast coastline. After parking his car at the hotel, Yukai checked in and went to his room, changing into beach shorts and a floral shirt. He also slathered on sunscreen for protection. Sunscreen is always recommended in areas with strong UV rays. After all, the sun doesn't care if you're a boy or a girl, it's a gentle killer, and you often only discover your skin is already sunburned by the time you get home from a day out. Before leaving, Yukai hesitated, but ultimately decided to leave his DSLR at the hotel. He definitely couldn't take it to the beach, it was a bit heavy and awkward to hold constantly. He was going to learn how to swim, and he wouldn't know where to put it. He decided to check the duty-free shops on the beach for action cameras. Going downstairs, Yukai asked the receptionist, "Hello, pretty girl, can I find a swimming coach here?" Her ears blushed at Yukai's compliment, and she lifted her hair to pull out a thick book from the cabinet containing photos and profiles of the coaches. Yukai had found a Chinese girl. The coaches depicted in the book were mostly male, topless, their well-defined muscles and mermaid lines radiating a strong sense of steroids. He'd have to be crazy to choose a man as his swimming coach. Wasn't she beautiful in her swimsuit? Sitting on the hotel sofa, scrolling through Weibo, Yukai's chosen coach soon arrived. She was wearing a gray, midriff-bearing tank top, short jeans, and white sandals with silver stripes. Her first impression was her long legs. Living on this island for years, her skin wasn't as fair and tender as the girls in mainland China, but it was remarkably healthy. Her long hair was tied in a ponytail, radiating a youthful aura. Yukai stood up and asked, "Hello, are you Coach Tian?" Tianjin was still looking for her customers, and suddenly she saw a handsome man standing up. Oh my god, is this her customer today? She really hasn't seen such a young and handsome man in a long time. Yukai saw that the man's eyes gradually dulled when he looked at him. Isn't it her? Yukai recalled the photo he saw in the album, and yes, it was her. Yukai walked towards her and waved his arm in front of Tianjin's eyes. Hello? Hello. Tianjin suddenly opened her eyes wide, leaned back, and her height suddenly increased. She looked much more energetic than when she walked in. Hello, too. Sorry, I just thought of something and was in a daze. What's your name and what project do you want to learn? You are not in a daze because you saw me? It seems so. Yukai's mouth curled up, and he could hardly hide his proud smile. I'm from Sichuan province, my name is Yukai. I've never swam before, so today you can just teach me how to swim. Tianjin said, okay, how about we just sit outside this hotel? The waters around our hotel are perfect for beginners, and the scenery is beautiful too. On Micro Beach, the Kingquan Hotel where Yukai stayed and the other Hyatt Hotel each had their own private beach. Because accommodations were a bit expensive, ordinary tourists wouldn't choose to stay there. And during peak tourist season, the public beaches outside offered no quiet space for Yukai to study, they were packed everywhere. It would be embarrassing to be seen swimming for the first time, and the crowds wouldn't be good either. The hotel beach was just to the right of the building. It wasn't crowded at the moment, and a few people, whose genders were unclear, were sunbathing under umbrellas. Based on the movies Yukai had seen, he assumed those with short pants were girls. After all, this was a beach, and the girls were all wearing swimsuits or bikinis. And as everyone knows, the prettier the bikini, the less fabric is used. Some people were playing with their children in the sand, while others were swimming around in the sea, or men and women were splashing water at each other. The screams and laughter reached Yukai. He was so envious. Before arriving, Yukai had called Sirisha. She was busy interviewing for a violin teaching position at a private high school and didn't have time to travel abroad for the time being. Shall we get started? Tianjin asked. Okay, what do we need to do? Tianjin said, let's warm up first. Then she undressed in front of Yukai, removing her gray tank top and shorts and discarding them on the floor, revealing a black bikini that accentuated her perfectly proportioned figure. I'll teach you the flexed arm extension first. Follow me. Yukai's mind was a little rusty now, but he finally understood why so many men went to various beaches for vacations whenever they had time. He wanted to go there often in the future. The flexed arm extension involved mimicking swimming movements with your arms, alternating between left and right strokes. Tianjin corrected Yukai's form, and he quickly got the hang of it. Then came the warm-up exercises like squats. Yukai felt thirsty. Tianjin hadn't considered doing these things in a bikini in front of a man. Was that really okay? The warm-up had clearly taken effect, and Yukai now wanted to cool down. Tianjin sealed their phones in a waterproof bag, then pulled a pair of swimming goggles from one of her bags and put them on Yukai's head. Let's go to the sea, she said. As they walked toward the sea, the water gradually covered her knees, then her thighs, and finally, when it reached her navel, Tianjin stopped and waited for Yukai behind her. Yukai raised his hands and slowly waded through the water, occasionally slapping the surface and causing nearby fish to frantically swim among the corals. The ocean current pushed the waves towards the shore. If you relaxed your control, the water would naturally push you inward. The water was now over a meter deep, but still crystal clear. Yukai could even see his toenails clearly, something even some indoor pools couldn't. For a moment, Yukai was more eager to learn how to swim. He wanted to swim in such water like a fish. He said to Tianjin, teach me quickly. I can't wait. Okay. She said, take a breath, then bury your head in the water, hold your breath, and come out to breathe when you want to. Tianjin's feet were no longer on the ground, but were swimming around Yukai. She had taught many students and knew what the most difficult part of swimming was for a landlubber. It's not paddling forward or breathing, but the seemingly simplest step of entering the water. As long as people who can't swim overcome their fear of water and can stay relaxed in the water, they can learn to swim quickly. An average person can become very proficient in swimming in a day or two. Yukai took a breath, and when he was about to enter the water, he suddenly looked up and asked, will water get into my ears? Chapter 53, Be gentle to water, and water will be gentle to you. Tianjin pondered the question for a moment and said, have you had ear surgery? No. Then it's no problem. Practice holding your breath. Don't be afraid, Tianjin soothed. She wanted to say something to ease Yukai's nerves. As a rule, novices were afraid to immerse their heads in the water, requiring a long period of training. But unexpectedly, after receiving a firm answer, Yukai took a deep breath and sank into the water. This left her speech stuck. She watched Yukai's hair drifting on the surface, swaying with the waves. Her gaze shifted downward, then she silently swam to his side, gazing at his abdominal muscles. How did you train that? She muttered softly. Gradually, Tianjin's expression grew serious, and she finally reached over and cupped Yukai's face, her wet hair sending a shower of water flying. Yukai was bewildered. What's wrong? You're okay. Tianjin breathed a sigh of relief. Yukai had been holding his breath for 3 minutes, and she had been swimming since she was a child, and in all her years, she could only hold it for 3 minutes. Seeing Yukai motionless, she almost thought something had happened. How long can you hold a breath? Tianjin asked curiously. Yukai brushed his hair away from his forehead and said, I don't know. At least just now I was swimming effortlessly, not feeling any discomfort at all. Did you keep track of the time? A few minutes. 3 minutes, Tianjin replied. She then asked, what do you do for a living? Why is your lung capacity so high? My profession. Seeing her expression, Yukai felt embarrassed to reply that he was a traveler, so he said, I'm a singer. I sing. I guess it's because I practice my breathing every day. Practice every day, no wonder, Tianjin said. She checked the time on her waterproof watch. It had only been less than an hour since she accepted the job, and Yukai had already mastered half of what he was supposed to teach. Don't be so fast, handsome boy. Can you practice for a few more days? Once one breaks through the psychological barrier and no longer fears the water, the challenges of swimming become threefold, being able to hold their breath, moving forward, and breathing. And Yukai has already passed the breath-holding test. Then let's move on to the next step, Tianjin said. Okay, go ahead. The human body has buoyancy. You know how a swimming ring floats quickly when inflated? The same goes for people. Take a deep breath and dive into the sea. As long as you relax your body, you'll float up quickly. At this point, Tianjin put on her glasses and said, watch me. Then she dove into the sea, hands stretched out by her ears, legs closed, and executed a high diving plunge. Others dive vertically, but she did it horizontally. 2 seconds later, Tianjin surfaced. She took off her glasses and said, water is a magical thing. The more you resist, the more it resists you. The more gentle you are, the more gentle it will be. As long as you relax and find a way, you can easily swim. I see. What should we do next? Yukai asked. Tianjin was silent for a moment, then said, then I'll teach you a relatively simple swimming move. Follow along. They both dove into the water. Tianjin, arms curled, flap underwater, her legs completely useless. Could this be the legendary doggy paddle? Yukai swam a few meters, finding the right feeling for the swim. He then recalled his warm-up on the shore and, imitating a swimming video he'd seen, began freestyle. Initially, his hands and feet weren't coordinating well, causing his speed to drop dramatically. However, Yukai quickly found the trick and followed Tianjin in a freestyle. Tired of paddling, Tianjin asked, well, this is the simplest way to swim. Have you mastered it? Yukai leaned back, bringing his head out of the water for air, and returned to the water. I think I've got it. Are you tired? Let's go to shore and rest. Okay. As if forgetting how to swim, Tianjin doggy paddled around Yukai, then locked eyes with a freestyle swimmer. Tianjin, forgetting her own fatigue, thought to herself. This handsome guy obviously knows how to swim, so why did he choose me as his coach? Could it be? Seeing the girl lost in thought again, Yukai swam over and asked, what's wrong? Do you need my help? I'm fine. I'm a little tired. I'll go to shore first. She said quickly, then, like Aquaman, she dove into the water, her arms waving like a whirlwind, the water splattering into a sea of dancing white foam. A little tired. Yukai suddenly wanted this girl to star in the King Niu commercial. She had just been so exhausted, but now she looked more ferocious than a real fighting bull. Seeing Tianjin almost reach the shore, Yukai swam over slowly. He couldn't speed up because he was still adapting. And in physical exercise, if you can go slow, you should go slow. It's better to focus on accurate form than speed. Yukai was puzzled. Tianjin had been teaching him constantly, but he hadn't received any system prompts, not even for the basics of swimming. Although Yukai's natural talent had improved his learning ability, even with a high level of learning ability, mastering a skill wasn't something that could be achieved overnight. Tianjin watched Yukai's movements for a long time, and after confirming that he truly couldn't swim, she returned to the water and instructed him, breathe out through your nose and in through your mouth. Yukai followed suit. If you find it difficult to breathe, quickly push down in the water with your hands as if supporting yourself on the ground. This will help you lift your head easily, and then take a deep breath. Was this coach serious? The instruction was packed with practical tips. Tianjin circled behind Yukai, grasped the soles of his feet, and gently guided his movements, helping him find the smooth coordination between his hands and legs. That was the feeling. Yukai memorized Tianjin's guidance and began to accelerate his swimming. Swimming relies heavily on core strength, which helps maintain balance amidst the rapid swinging of his arms and legs. Among other things, Yukai was most proud of his physical fitness, so tasks that others found difficult were now easily accomplished. Now, Yukai had the demeanor of a seasoned swimmer. He swam for an hour, waving his hands faster and faster, even giving Yukai the illusion that he was racing. He just wanted to go faster and faster. On the sea, a figure bravely advanced against the waves, leaving a long inverted V-shaped watermark on the sea. "Hey!" Tianjin shouted from a distance. "What?" Yukai shouted without even turning back. "You are going to swim to the open sea." "What?" Yukai looked up and saw the outline of Gungkanjima vaguely visible in front of him. Tianjin behind him was as small as an ant. He turned around and swam back. There was a chance of encountering sharks in the open sea. Yukai didn't dare to engage in hand-to-hand combat with sharks. His life was more important. Chapter 54, The farther we are, the closer our hearts become. Yukai was delighted after finishing his swim practice in the morning and invited his coach to lunch. This girl was good in every way, and she was pretty, but she was often in a trance, her mind wandering off in the middle of a conversation, and it was hard to tell what she was thinking. At first, he thought it was just his charm, but after a while, he stopped thinking so. It was just Tianjin's daily routine. Following a recommendation from an online friend, Yukai went to a seaside restaurant called Ali Beach. The restaurant was a white house on the beach, and the tables were on the seaside. The fence was as high as the tables, and with a slight turn of the head, he could see the beautiful sea sky merging into a distant horizon and feel the constant breeze. The temperature in Saipan today was 28 degrees, but Yukai felt it was hotter than the 28 degrees in Sichuan province. If he hadn't checked the weather forecast, he would have thought it was over 30 degrees. In weather like this, the sea breeze is truly the best way to beat the heat. It works tirelessly, 24 hours a day, diligently carrying the heat away from you. Yukai handed the menu to Tianjin and said, "What do you want?" "Anything's fine, just order first." "Okay, I'll have the steak medium rare, a sirloin steak, and an ice cold Coke." "Okay." Tianjin said, "I suggest you try the Taga burger. It's a big portion and a local specialty, and many tourists who come to Saipan order it." "Okay then." Yukai pushed the menu toward Tianjin and said to the waiter, "Keep everything else the same, but add a Taga burger and fries." A Taga burger is a type of hamburger, also known as a Taga burger. While hamburgers in China are essentially just fried chicken and a smear of salad, American burgers are completely different from what you might think of as burgers. If Yukai were to evaluate an American burger, he'd say it's simple, unpretentious, and generously sized. It's a 1 centimeter thick, medium-rare patty on freshly toasted bread, topped with an egg, lettuce, onions, tomatoes, and plenty of sauce and mayonnaise. The taste of a medium-rare patty is the best. If it is baked 1 minute longer, the juicy meat inside the patty will be lost, and the tender taste will be lost. If it is baked 1 minute less, the juicy meat inside will not be locked in. Yukai fell in love with American hamburgers in Ireland, but found a different flavor here. In addition to the above side dishes, Yukai also tasted the flavor of pineapple in the Taga burger. A layer of corn pulp was poured into the middle of the pineapple. The multi-layered taste made people forget that it was just a burger. In the blink of an eye, Yukai finished a huge burger. To become an internet celebrity restaurant is definitely not just because of the unique decoration style, but also because of the special food. The Taga burger is not inferior to some big meals. The steak here tastes very ordinary, 2 levels lower than the burger in taste. Yukai thought it would be better to just order a burger patty. After eating, Yukai slowly ate the desserts and drinks that helped him feel less greasy, and chatted with Tianzhen, who was sitting across from him. Your accent must mean you're from Jiangsu and Zhejiang, so why are you working here? Yes, I'm from Hangzhou. I came here for a trip last year, and a travel agency asked if I wanted to stay. I agreed, so I stayed. Hangzhou, I actually really want to visit Hangzhou, Yukai said. Jiangsu and Zhejiang, once the land of Wu and Yu, were the most barbaric areas during the Warring States period. Later, they became the capital of Literatai and the back garden of China, and the legends of their experiences have influenced generations of Chinese people. Mentioning Hangzhou brings to mind the romantic stories of Westlake and countless poets and writers. Even now, Jiangsu and Zhejiang are culturally rich provinces. Not to mention the award-winning writers, even the students' college entrance examination scores are among the best in all of China. As a novelist, Yukai naturally wanted to visit Hangzhou. Tianzhen also loved her hometown, and with a smile, she chatted with Yukai about Hangzhou. She used to be a swimming instructor at a swimming pool in Hangzhou, specializing in teaching children. So you teach children? Do you think I'm a child too? Yukai quipped. Tianzhen quickly waved her hand and explained, No, the process is the same. Teaching children requires constant monitoring, otherwise it would be terrible if they choked on the water. Right. If they choked on the water, their parents wouldn't let you off. It's a good thing you came here. Why did someone like her, who was so prone to daydreaming, get assigned to a child management position? No wonder she left her previous job and came to Saipan. It's not that I'm afraid of their parents, Tianzhen said. There are many reasons, the most important being that the wages here are high. Without the travel agency's tourists to coach, we can take on private tours like yours. She smiled and continued, Also, honestly, I don't like staying back home. It's strange, as long as I'm away from my family, we stop arguing, stop hurting each other, and even become closer. Every time I'm home, my family and I cherish our time together even more. We don't dwell on the trivialities of life, and we stop demanding things from each other. So, I think distance brings us closer. Yukai agreed. Before college, Yukai saw only a stern face, a father who would berate him at the slightest sign of dissatisfaction. Back then, the very concept of fatherly love seemed to have never existed in Yukai's mind. He was busy running the factory during the day, and at night he would come home to supervise Yukai's studies. Only after leaving them, and being far away, did Yukai remember Yuzi Ukiang's kindness, his father's difficulties, and his silent love for him. My experience is probably similar to yours, Yukai sighed, taking a sip of his ice coke. Tianzhen smiled sweetly and said, I'm used to it. It's just that being alone abroad sometimes makes me feel a little lonely. Oh? Do you have a boyfriend? Yukai asked. For someone like her working abroad, it should be easier to find a boyfriend abroad, especially in Korea and other island nations, which are the countries with the most tourists to Saipan besides the Chinese. No, she said with a blush. She blushed even when talking about love, and yet she's working as a swimming instructor? Yukai still remembers the moment she took off her clothes on the beach. You're about my age, right? Do you want to find someone foreign or Chinese? Probably Chinese. I want to make enough money to open an indoor swimming pool back home. I miss life back home after spending so much time abroad. Tianzhen lowered her head to stir the nearly melted ice cubes, then asked, What about you? Me? I'm currently attracted to foreigners, he said with a smile, because my current girlfriend is Irish. Anticipating Yukai's answer, Tianzhen froze in her tracks. So embarrassed. I thought you came to Saipan alone, a single guy like me, but it turns out you have a girlfriend. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, The King of Deep Diving. Continuing his afternoon swim at the beach, Yukai learned not only freestyle but also backstroke, butterfly stroke, and other swimming styles. Although he didn't receive any system-gifted skill bonuses, the swimming techniques he'd learned today were more than sufficient. Since he wasn't competing in swimming competitions, acquiring professional level swimming skills wouldn't be of much use to him. However, this also reminded Yikai that not all skills can be acquired through learning, many require personal initiative. This is when talent comes into play. With the 3 talent points from the scenic spot and the 26 points from Weibo, Yikai now has 29 points of system-given talent. After the Song King contest, Yikai's Weibo followers soared, reaching over 1 million in just a few days, and his talent points also increased rapidly. However, the effect of talent gradually diminished as talent increased. Yikai researched this in his free time and concluded that if his initial talent was 5, then receiving the 5 points from the system would double his talent. For example, if he previously typed 3,000 words an hour, he could now type 6,000. Inspiration and understanding can't be quantified, but the improvement is significant, so consider it doubled. Then, when Yikai's natural talent reached 10 points, gaining another 10 would double his talent again 12,000 words per hour. The more talent one possesses, the smaller the reward, and the difficulty increases exponentially. Actually, she should be satisfied. Even if she couldn't immediately acquire skills from him, learning to swim in one day, and swimming at a competitive pace, would put any self-proclaimed genius to shame. Knowing that Yikai wasn't single, Tianjin put her thoughts to rest. She knew she wouldn't be so lucky. How could someone this handsome still have a girlfriend? Besides, she wasn't particularly well off, so how could she possibly be? Saipan was hot during the day, similar to the snowy areas, but here, the temperature didn't fluctuate so dramatically. Nighttime temperatures remained above 23 degrees Celsius, making it comfortable to go out in short sleeves. His physique improved with his talent, but the transformation seemed to have begun after Ireland's illness. It was after that illness that the belly fat transformed into abdominal muscles. Someone had heard it said that men with good figures exude confidence on the beach. It was so well said. Yikai sat on a public beach, a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice in hand. The wind blew off the sea, blowing his hair back, revealing his forehead. His unbuttoned shirt also blew back like a cape. His belly was devoid of any excess fat, and his perfectly formed page, abs, and mermaid line captivated the attention of at least half the girls on the beach. In the distance, the sun was setting, or rather, setting over the sea, as it were. The sky was at the transition from brightness to dusk, tinting the sky closest to him red, as well as the ocean reflected in it. There were no clouds in the sky today, and few boats on the sea. In one word, clean. The setting sun was half in the sea, half on the ground. Because of the lack of clouds, its light wasn't radiating outward, but concentrated on the shoreline. At this point, the sky above was blue, and the ocean near the beach was also blue. Only the shoreline, as if divinely enhanced, glowed a fiery crimson under the setting sun. It was so beautiful, but it was a shame I didn't bring a camera. Yikai stood up and glanced around. Many girls automatically averted their gazes, while others stared even more brazenly, as if he were a giant diamond. He had gotten up to go to the duty-free shop to see if there were any underwater cameras, but suddenly saw someone holding a camera pointed at him. So Yikai walked over and asked, "Hello, can we meet?" Yikai assured her he had no intention of flirting, he simply wanted some photos of the girl she'd taken before. The girl had likely been pointing the camera at him for a long time, and there was an 80% chance she had many photos of him. He had finally gotten a chance to show off, so he definitely wanted to keep them as a souvenir. But what Yikai hadn't expected was that, though the girl shyly lowered her head, she immediately ran without hesitation. Ran. As she ran, she didn't forget to glance back to see if Yikai had caught up. Yikai's smile froze on his face. If there were crows on Saipan, they'd be bursting into laughter right now. Is this my fault? He scratched his hair and sighed. Never mind, let's go see if there's a portable camera. There are 2 duty-free shops on Saipan, one near here and the other at the airport. Neither is very large, perhaps due to Saipan's inherent small size. The cameras at duty-free shops are expensive. The one Yikai liked cost 11,600 yuan, GoPro's new Hek 20 Blacks. It has ample battery life, higher resolution, and is highly waterproof. It can reach depths of up to 200 meters. This is the deepest a small action camera can go. Deeper requires a professional-grade submersible camera. It maintains clear images even at high speeds. Another feature is that it doesn't overheat. Sun Shang once had an action camera that burned out its components after prolonged recording. It can be handheld or worn on a helmet, and it connects to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This allows Yukai to use it for live streaming, though he's only done it a few times. That's it. Yukai didn't want a free memory card, so he paid a little extra for a 256GB one. He kept the invoice. He'd need this small receipt to claim his taxes back home. Yukai estimated the 30,000 yuan he'd earned here wouldn't last him more than 10 days. Back at the hotel, Yukai connected his phone via Bluetooth and wandered around the hotel gardens to see how it worked. Cool. A voice called from behind Yukai. A white, blonde man was looking at his phone. He was about 25-30, sturdy, and about the same height as Yukai. Seeing Yukai turn around, he smiled and said, "Hello." "Yes, hello. Who are you?" Yukai asked. He pointed at the camera in Yukai's hand and said, "Heck 20 Blacks, nicknamed the King of Deep Diving. Are you going to the Blue Hole tomorrow?" The Blue Hole here wasn't referring to the company that developed PUBG, but a famous attraction on Saipan, considered the second best cave diving site in the world, renowned for its deep blue water. "I will definitely go later, but my plan for tomorrow is to experience skydiving and parasailing." In fact, Yukai is not yet proficient in swimming. After a few days when he is familiar with swimming and diving, Yukai will go to the Blue Hole for diving. Otherwise, he can only swim on the water surface, which is boring. Chapter 56 Travel Notes cover. Skydiving is thrilling, but parachuting, I've seen others do it, doesn't seem interesting to me, he said, extending his hand toward Yukai. "My name is Ben Dinnan, and I'm from Australia." Yukai indicated that both of his hands were clenched, preventing a handshake. "My name is Yukai, just call me Yi. I'm from China." "Yi." Dinnan pondered, then said, "Does Yi mean grandfather in your country?" "Of course it does. Haha, you've got a great name. Yi." Everyone had always called Yukai that, but he'd only just discovered it today. For foreigners, the four tones of a single Chinese sound are incredibly difficult. Therefore, most foreigners who have studied Chinese but aren't proficient in it speak it in a single tone. Dinnan from Australia was no exception. He knew a little Chinese, but he always spoke it in the same tone. To him, the words yi and yi were pronounced the same way. Yukai shrugged and said, "Then I might really need to think about how to introduce my name to friends from other countries. You can just call me Kai." "Okay, Kai." He bared his large white teeth. He was also going to the hotel restaurant for dinner, so the two of them went together to study the camera. Dinnan didn't care about the camera's imaging, as long as it captured the image, he was fine. Unlike Yukai, he wasn't obsessed with exploring the camera's limits. Action cameras like these have significant wide-angle distortion, which can compare to professional camera lenses. However, their advantage in capturing moving images offsets their shortcomings. After ordering, Yukai asked, "Are you here for tourism, too?" "No," he said. "There's a tourist-only surfing competition in Saipan in a week, and we've been invited by Saipan to be judges." "Surfing? But the waves here seem small." "It's kitesurfing. I'm not familiar with it, I've only tried it. If you come to Australia, I can teach you how to surf properly." "Would they let you be a judge if you weren't familiar with it?" So, if that were the case, wouldn't Dinnan still be a heavyweight in the surfing world? Yukai was already considering asking a few questions to see if he could gain the skill. "That's pretty cool, too. I'd really like to try surfing. I'll try it out when I have time and see if I can enter a competition." "Awesome." Dinnan laughed. "You're right, I think so too. But it has nothing to do with being a judge. I'm just here to make money." Fortunately, no one was around. Wasn't that a bit too blunt? Saipan surfing competition wasn't even at the amateur level, it was just a tourist attraction. Dinnan's invitation to be a judge was like a celebrity signing a commercial gig. The food arrived. Yukai ordered a large plate of spaghetti, slathered with tomatoes. The mere sight of it gave him a strong tomato aroma. It tasted quite good, though. He didn't finish it because it was so large. Yukai drank his milk slowly. Across from him, Dinnan had finished and stood up. "Kai, do you want to go out for a walk?" "No," Yukai said. "I have work to do. Let's add each other as friends. When I have time, I'd like to ask you about surfing." "Okay, I'm going to Saipan for a few days. Feel free to come and see me if you're free." After exchanging Twitter accounts with Yukai, Dinnan went downstairs. The ocean is almost deserted at night, it's too dark, making it dangerous. If you get stung by a jellyfish, No one will rescue you because you can't see or hear them. The reason is that the beach is packed with food carts at night, and the combined noise of tourists and shop owners can travel hundreds of meters across the water, making it incredibly lively. Back in the room, Yukai just turned on his computer when he heard the penguin video link. This trip was to avoid reporters back home, so Yukai wouldn't be updating his travelogue on Weibo. His job today was to finalize the cover. Nirvana in Fire had already been completed, with Yukai personally handwriting the cover and the text. Amidst the vast expanse of sea, a lone boat holds a figure whose back is visible. With just a few strokes, he evokes a sense of desolation. In fact, the entire image, including the text, took only about 30 seconds. The cover for the travelogue was a difficult decision for Yukai. Photos of the snowy region were initially ruled out as too mysterious and weighty, making them unsuitable for large-scale promotion. Furthermore, most of the photos were of Ireland, so using a snowy region would be a bit off-topic. Teacher Yi, do you have an idea? Printing starts tomorrow. Having tasted the sweetness of selling them as a package, they decided to combine the travelogue and Nirvana in Fire, offering a small discount when buying both together. Travelogues are a scarce genre of book on the market. Although Rip kept urging Yukai to publish a travelogue, they didn't actually know how big a market there was for such a genre. Chinese people don't have a habit of reading, and sales of traditional books have always been low. Let's take the second one, Yukai said. The first chapter was taken when they first arrived in Guangbu Jiangda. The river and the city blended beautifully, with the snow-capped mountains in the distance looming through the mist. The third was taken on Halloween, when Yukai took a photo of the gate that had frightened him. After Yukai's editing, the horror had faded, and it looked like a child's prank, a laughable sight. The second photo Yukai chose was taken in Gruyere. The townspeople participating in the event were singing and dancing around a bonfire. A small child tripped over a rock. But he didn't cry. Instead, he smiled and stood up, dancing with a funny gait. Yukai loved this photo. No matter what his mood, seeing it always made him smile. Perhaps this was everyone's childhood. Okay, then it's settled, Joe Kwan said. Nirvana in Fire is priced at 54 yuan, and Travel Notes is 30 yuan. If you buy it as a package, it only costs 79 yuan, a 5 yuan discount. Right now, many of Yukai's fans are clamoring to buy his books. Fans like them will be the largest group of book buyers. Regardless of whether the books are good or not, they must support their idol's books. This is why many celebrities who can't write books also publish books, or at least publish autobiographies. How many copies of The Legend of Sword and Fairy have you sold? Yukai suddenly asked. But before Rip could send a message, Yukai's phone rang. Teacher He. Yukai, it's me. Our TV station would like to interview you. I'm wondering if you'd be available to record an interview tomorrow. It'll probably take about 10 minutes. Yukai's phone number has always been blocked to strangers. The only way to contact Yukai is to find someone who has added him on WeChat. After much deliberation, Mango TV only found Teacher He's phone and WeChat. I'm overseas and I'm not sure when I'll be back. Is that so? I'll reply to those leaders for you, He Jiang said. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, he said, there's one more thing I forgot to mention, but you should talk to me when you get back. Remember to call me then. Yesterday, the keyboard that had been with me for 3 years broke. That's right, after 3 years, it's been with me through 2 books, so it's understandable that it's broken now. The new keyboard is very unusual, we're still in the process of getting used to it. My mind was really racing today. This chapter took me 5 hours to write. Besides the keyboard issue, I had a major problem myself. I was exhausted and constantly wanted to sleep. Good night everyone, I'm going to bed. Chapter 57 Offshore Project Package. The room window faces southwest, and abundant bright sunlight pours in. Yukai has no choice but to throw off the quilt and get up. He really can't sleep in such sunlight. He checked the time and it was already past 9 o'clock. The sunrise over the sea is very famous, but Yukai definitely can't get up at that time. Besides, he always thinks that he has plenty of time. He is here for tourism and should enjoy life. Getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning is not a good way to enjoy life. In fact, he is still lazy. Today, he will still go to the beach activities and then go diving in Gunkanjima. The diving projects in Saipan are among the best in the world's tourist destinations. The unique geographical conditions allow you to see countless small marine creatures in shallow waters, and even creatures such as moray eels that are not easy to see in shallow waters. Yukai's lung capacity is pretty good. Last night, Yukai calculated by looking at the watch and his limit time was about 6 minutes. He went to the restaurant for breakfast and met Dinan on the way. "Hi." Dinan waved. Carrying a large backpack, he happily greeted Yukai. Dinan was planning a scuba diving trip to the Blue Hole today, his backpack containing his diving equipment. "Are you going parachuting?" he asked. "Maybe, but I need to get some breakfast first. How about you? Have you eaten yet?" Dinan nodded. It was already past 9 o'clock, a time when most people would be thinking about lunch. Something struck him, and he pointed toward the city center. "I found a Chinese restaurant called the Oriental Restaurant downtown yesterday. I wonder if you've seen it." "Chinese food here?" Yukai was pleasantly surprised. He hadn't even noticed. "Thank you. Looks like I've decided on a place for lunch." The two separated, Yukai going to the restaurant for breakfast while Dinan went diving at a Blue Hole. The restaurant's breakfast was very oriental. In addition to various pasta and breads, they also offered oriental dishes like steamed buns and dumplings, as well as several common Chinese porridges. A bowl of porridge cost $5. While porridge at upscale establishments can taste just as good as home-cooked, the enjoyment of dining in a restaurant lies in the ambience and service. You don't have to pay the 10% service charge, or tip, as it's added directly to your bill. If you're new to traveling abroad, you'll definitely be unaccustomed to this practice. But after a while, you'll just accept it. After all, if they accept a tip, their service will be much more attentive. You won't find yourself chatting or eating sunflower seeds after you've called them. Yukai left the hotel and saw a crowd already on the beach in the distance. The sun usually rises around 4 or 5 p.m. here, and most tourists arrive around 8 p.m. to begin their day. A significant number of visitors only stay 3 or 7 days, leaving those who want to stay longer, like Yukai, to be found only by the staff and the locals. After leaving the hotel, walking west along the road, you'll find Micro Beach. The weather is hot, but not dry. Laughter and chatter drift from the beach, a joyful and relaxed atmosphere permeating the air. This beach is Saipan's most famous, bustling with tourists during the day, and equally lively at night, with a so-called night market often stretching for hundreds of meters with international snacks. Yukai had seen it last night, but didn't go. Instead of heading straight for the beach, he headed towards the pier. He spotted the sport he'd been wanting to try the previous day, sea parachuting, also known as parasailing. The trick is to take protective gear and then hang onto a specially designed parachute. The canvas of this parachute has a gap that allows some wind to pass through. Without this gap, the speedboat wouldn't be able to move forward. As the speedboat moves forward, the parachute is released, like a kite, sending the person soaring into the sky. After waiting in line for a while, it was Yukai's turn. "How much?" Yukai asked. The person collecting the fee was a middle-aged man in his 30s, likely a local. $86, including the banana boat and parasailing. After paying, the middle-aged man said cordially, "Thank you," and then let Yukai move on to collect the next person's entrance fee. Shouldn't it be called an entrance fee? Yukai wondered. This small pier was full of speedboats. Once you passed the toll booth, someone would greet you. There were 2 black men on the speedboat. When they saw Yukai holding a camera, they grinned at the camera. After getting on the boat, they first played on the banana boat. The banana boat is not for one person to play. It is a yellow inflatable boat shaped like a banana. It is slender and people sit astride it. The speedboat pulls it from the front. It can seat 6 people at a time. Yukai put on his life jacket on the boat and waited for the speedboat to arrive at the designated location. He didn't really want to play this. It reminded Yukai of riding a roller coaster in an amusement park. The banana boat was not as fast as the roller coaster, and now that he could swim, Yukai was no longer afraid of the seawater. Yukai was fiddling with his sports camera when he heard a couple chatting quietly. "That person looks so familiar to me, is he the one?" "Which one?" the man asked. "That one, the singer who also wrote a novel. He's so handsome, he looks like a fresh meat. I guess he's not a good guy. He has a good reputation. Oh, why can't I remember his name? I saw him in the news a few days ago." The girl tried hard to remember, but she didn't usually pay attention to the entertainment industry, so she didn't know Yukai's name. But it was such a rare opportunity to meet a celebrity, she couldn't miss it. So she stood up, staggered over to Yukai, and asked, "Hello, Can we take a photo together? Sure. Yukai didn't say anything, nor did he get angry that they didn't remember his name. Suddenly, a wave rushed over, causing the boat to rock violently. Yukai pulled the girl up. She was standing, and without him, she would have fallen into the sea. He thought, after all, she had asked him to take the photo, so falling into the sea would be a disaster. But the pull just happened to pull the girl into his arms. The boy's eyes widened, his nostrils flared, and he was obviously very angry. Yukai felt relieved. Who told you to call me a fresh meat? The girl finished taking pictures with a blushing face. It was time to get on the banana boat. Everyone jumped from the stern to the banana boat. It could seat 6 people in total, and there was a rope in front of the seats. The rope can play a role in fixing, otherwise when moving at high speed, people will be pushed into the sea by the reaction force. Are you holding on tight? Asked the black man. Okay. Everyone gave an affirmative answer. Then, the speedboat started slowly, accelerating steadily all the way until it reached the maximum speed of the speedboat. At this time, the banana boat was like flying on the water, and people didn't dare to put their feet in the sea. Yukai sat in the front, and he had to hold on to the safety rope tightly with his hands. There was an illusion that people were about to fly. It was quite exciting. Yukai took back what he said when he got on the boat. Chapter 58 Snorkeling. The tiny droplets of water splashing up from the sea seemed insignificant and delicate, but the speed with which they hit people's faces was like a torrential downpour, making it difficult to open your eyes and forcing you to cling to the ropes of the banana boat. Over time, the ropes rubbed your hands until they ached. After a full circle, the boat returned to the dock, and as everyone stood on shore, it felt like the world was spinning. The Black brothers handed everyone a dry towel. Yukai draped the towel over his shoulders and asked, when can we try the next ride? He didn't get carsick or seasick. After such a thrilling banana boat ride, Yukai was in high spirits, eager to take a speedboat for a spin himself. Speed is the ultimate adrenaline rush, which is why many people enjoy sports like racing, skateboarding, and skydiving, even when they know they're dangerous. Yukai didn't know the specific effects of adrenaline, but he knew it could make people excited, just as he was feeling now. The black man first glanced at the other tourists on shore, who all looked exhausted, then at Yukai. He said blankly, if you think it's okay, we can do it any time. They boarded the boat and headed out to sea. Someone on the boat erected a device that looked like a small, half-sized basket. There had always been a colorful object on the boat, and when they shook it, they discovered it was actually a parasailing parachute. They tied a line to the basket-like object, and finally, as the speedboat started, the parachute instantly deployed under the wind. The line on the basket was long, resembling a kite. Yukai was fully equipped, wearing a life jacket and safety harnesses on his back and waist. He now attached the safety harnesses to the parachute, and all preparations were complete. The black man patted the rope and said, hold here. Yukai grabbed it with his left hand, holding the camera in his right. The camera had an extendable handle, which made it work like a selfie stick, but with greater flexibility and more angles. Ready. Yukai smiled and gave the OK sign. Okay. As the line released, it felt like someone suddenly yanked you from behind, sending you flying backwards. But instead of landing in the sea, you rode the wind high into the sky. The parachute whirred behind Yukai, and he was flying at high speed. Although suspended in the air, Yukai didn't feel much discomfort, as the parachute was bearing the weight. At most, he felt a safety line tightening around his feet. Compared to a banana boat, the feeling of riding the waves was gone, but the horizons were much broader. Viewing the Saipan Ocean from above offered a unique perspective. The waters remained a vibrant blue, and shadows could be seen beneath the surface, hidden reefs. Warships. 3 warships patrolled the sea in the distance. Yukai wished they were Chinese, but it was clear that this wasn't Chinese territorial waters, it was American. The passing warships were also theirs, looking incredibly menacing. When the wind wasn't strong enough, or the speedboat slowed, the parachute would lower until Yukai's feet touched the water. The speedboat would then accelerate and pull the parachute back up into the air. Yukai experienced the thrill of walking on water. After about 20 minutes, the speedboat slowed down, and Yukai landed in the water. But he didn't stay there for long, as a motorboat quickly approached. Hold on here. The man driving the motorboat said, pointing to the stern. There was a grab handle at the rear. After unbuckling the parachute's safety buckle, he pulled hard and was up. How does it feel? The man asked, That's so cool. Yukai exclaimed excitedly, shaking the water off his head. I've never played these games before. Flying over the sea feels amazing. Living in the same city, commuting to work and home, is like being trapped there, thinking the world is small. But it's actually much bigger than you imagine. It's quite possible that while traveling, you'll discover your true passion, something you're willing to dedicate your life to. After a speedboat dropped Yukai off at the dock, he boarded a boat bound for Gunkanjima. Snorkeling fees were included in the boat fee. Gunkanjima is a small island located off the west coast, sometimes called the Pearl of Saipan. It's so close that you can see Gunkanjima from the beach. It's a great spot for snorkeling, boasting clear waters and a diverse array of marine life. The boat ride from Saipan takes just 15 minutes. Gunkanjima is small, circumnavigating the island in 20 minutes, but despite its small size, it boasts a comprehensive array of amenities, including souvenir shops, snack bars, and public restrooms. There are few activities to enjoy here, and for Yukai, snorkeling is the only attraction. There's also an underwater walk, similar to snorkeling, but with an astronaut-shaped helmet. You can walk on the seabed. Wearing this helmet resembling Sandy, the helmeted squirrel from SpongeBob SquarePants, is a good start. Yukai can hold his breath for a long time, so he doesn't need a helmet when diving. The boatman gave Yukai diving goggles and a snorkel, allowing him to breathe without having to lift his head out of the water. He also had a pair of short fins, which allowed him to move more freely underwater. He also had a wetsuit, but he didn't use it. In fact, most people don't use wetsuits for diving except in winter. Their main function is to keep out the cold. As the sea gets colder the deeper you go. Only scuba divers and professional divers use wetsuits for underwater work. The boatman pulled out a small bag of granular substances. Maybe you need this. What's this? Yukai asked. Some little fish attractants, the boatman said with a wide grin. Okay, how about I wait for you for half an hour? Sure. Half an hour was plenty of time. Yukai sat on the edge of the boat, leaned back, and fell into the sea. With a mask, he could see clearly underwater. The difference between a mask and a diving goggles is that a mask equalizes pressure and prevents water from entering the nose. The world under the sea is naturally not as bright as outside. In the ocean, light seems to have colors, blue and cyan, the colors of the ocean's light. It only took Yukai a few seconds to adapt to the fins. He only needed to swim slowly, and the fins gave him a powerful thrust. There were many fish in the sea, and they weren't very afraid of people. However, they would still avoid you if you approached them, staying about a meter away. This was when the boatman's bait came in handy. Chapter 59, Walking and Shooting. Unwrapping the bait from its package, a puff of pale blue smoke suddenly appeared in the water. The loose particles within turned into a slurry upon contact with the water. Yukai scooped out a little and slowly broke it up between his index finger and thumb. The pale blue smoke grew thicker, but it didn't obscure his vision. Palm-sized, blue fish swam over, some spotted with white. Hiding in the coral, fish barely 2 fingers in size also swam toward Yukai. They had black and white stripes like zebras, small and adorable. But he only let the fish approach, he couldn't touch them. Their tiny bodies were incredibly agile in the ocean. Humans, on the other hand, are restricted in the water, unable to freely control their bodies. After all, humans are still land creatures. Yukai surfaced for breath, and the boatman called out, "Hey! Don't wait until you're out of air before coming up." Unable to speak due to the respirator, he gestured okay and continued diving. While it's safe here, it's still underwater, and anything could happen. Therefore, you must come out of the water to breathe when you have only 1/3 of your breath left. This isn't just for safety, it also ensures adequate oxygen supply to your brain, preventing hypoxia and fainting. Therefore, Yukai would come out of the water for air within 5 minutes of each dive. The crew assumed he was only coming out when he was almost at his limit. When his time was up, Yukai, with the crew's help, returned to the boat. After removing his equipment, he lay on the deck, breathing in the fresh air. Perhaps the air wasn't fresh, but rather had a strong, salty, damp smell. But that wasn't the point. People tend to value what they've lost. This is a common flaw. When something is always around, we never realize how much it impacts us, or how uncomfortable it would be to lose it. Just like the air that surrounds us, when Yukai enters the ocean and can't breathe on his own, he realizes how deeply we cherish it. The boatman, holding a cigarette in his mouth, steered the boat and asked, How about we continue our adventure or go back to Saipan? Let's go back. I'm hungry. While there were food options on Gungkanjima Island, there were no full meals. Yukai wanted to go to the Huaksha restaurant that Dinan had told him about. Wiping his hair with a towel, Yukai asked the crew member, "If I want to go diving in the blue hole, what should I do? I heard you need a certification, is that true?" "Yes." The crew member put down his cigarette and exhaled a puff of smoke. "At least an open water certification is required. We have a testing center on the island. If you study hard, you can get your certificate in 3 days." "What is an open water certification? Is it easy to get?" "The open water certification is the entry-level certification. It's not necessary. If you want to go diving in the blue hole, you can find an instructor to take you there. It's very convenient and inexpensive." Yukai nodded, draped the towel around his neck, and watched Saipan approach. He thought, "I'll take the test. I want to go on my own. If snorkeling is about observing small fish and shrimp in shallow waters, then deep diving allows you to truly enter the ocean and play with whales and dolphins." The blue hole dive involved traversing a long underwater passage. Due to the depths and the passage through a dark cavern, solo scuba diving was only permitted with a certified scuba diver. He imagined his instructor leading the group, holding one person in his left hand and another in his right. It felt like holding a chick or duckling, so embarrassing. Not long after, the boat arrived at Saipan again. Yukai walked barefoot on the soft sand and retrieved his belongings from his rented suitcase. He put on his shoes, reapplied sunscreen, and headed for the city streets. His rental sports car had been returned, and while it was fine for a quick spin around town, Yukai's usual beachside pursuits proved impractical. The main drag was only 6 minutes away. Yukai circled twice but couldn't find the Oriental restaurant Dinan had mentioned. Instead, he found the Oriental Barbecue. It was a Chinese restaurant, offering a buffet at noon and barbecue only in the evenings. It seemed Dinan needed to work on his Chinese. Yukai walked into Oriental Barbecue. A Chinese girl greeted him in Chinese. "Hello, how can I help you?" Many stores here have Chinese guides, so even those who don't speak English can still enjoy Saipan. Even the locals are adept at interacting with Chinese people. Simple words and hand gestures are all they need for them to understand what you need. "Of course, we're going to eat. My friend told me there's a Chinese restaurant down the street. I thought it was the kind where you could order food." The girl smiled and led Yukai to the food pickup area. "Our chef is the best Chinese chef in Saipan. It's a buffet. Lunch is stir-fried dishes for $5. Tonight, we have a barbecue buffet, which is more expensive at $25. Yukai walked around the restaurant with his plate and selected a few dishes he liked. The chef must have studied Sichuan cuisine. Sichuan chefs use different chilies than those in other places, and only they can achieve such a perfect balance of numbing and spiciness. The large pot of food had a cafeteria-like feel. Yukai hadn't had such a big pot of stir-fry in years. It was delicious, and crucially, it was cheap. It was incredibly hard to find an all-you-can-eat meal on this island for $5. A bowl of rice porridge in the morning was $5, but here, you could eat as much as you wanted. It satisfied everyone's craving for delicious food, and even the most generous eaters' appetites. He could make this restaurant one of his go-to spots and come back often. After paying the bill, Yukai tipped the Chinese woman who served him $5. Abroad, nothing is free, even if it's something you consider normal. After signing up with a diving agency, they wouldn't arrange an instructor until the next day, so Yukai had to return to the hotel to rest. Across the ocean, Yukai's second novel, Nirvana in Fire, was released in major bookstores and online stores alongside its companion book, Shooting While Walking. 2019 Travel Photography. Shooting While Walking. 2019 Travel Photography consists of 2 parts. If you can only go one place in life, make it a snowy region, and a 20-day travelogue of Ireland, the Emerald City. There were 46 selected images. Besides Yukai's travelogue, he even included the photography parameters for each photo below. With these parameters, even a novice photographer could go to a location Yukai had photographed and use the same entry to take a photo, and the results would be roughly the same. Outside the bookstore, there was no anxious line, but there were about 20 people chatting as they waited for the store to open. Chapter 60 Diving Theory. When a novel is released, readers brave the biting cold and line up outside the bookstore, a phenomenon only found in novels. A small number of people are willing to wake up early in the winter to wait, becoming die-hard fans. The majority choose to buy online. Yukai's sword immortal is so good. That's why I fell in love with him, a high school student said to a girl walking with him. Or rather, it was the book that sparked their conversation. The girl exhaled, her face flushed, and as she gazed at the bookstore entrance, she read, "Yeah, I heard a TV series is being filmed. I wonder how it'll turn out. It seems Nirvana in Fire is also a historical story. It's so mysterious, I have no idea what kind of story it is." A middle-aged man standing nearby took a few puffs of his cigarette, then put it out in a puddle. He asked, "Did Yukai, the one you're talking about, also write a travelogue?" "I don't know," the girl said, not really wanting to chat with the middle-aged man. The boy nodded and said, "Yes, it's all written by Yukai. I heard it's about the places he visited this year, with photos and other things. The book costs 30 yuan. 30 yuan for a travelogue?" The boy must have thought it wasn't worth it. Yukai's travelogues were available for free on Weibo, so why spend so much money? Just to see a few more new photos? The middle-aged man had a different idea. "Only 30? That's still very cheap." The middle-aged man noticed the young man's disdainful expression and patiently explained. "The book contains over 40 photos, each with shooting parameters." At this point, he paused. Why was he talking about this with a high school kid? It was obvious they didn't understand these things. They should just buy Nirvana in Fire. The girl pulled the boy away and whispered, "Strange guy, let's go, stay away from him." Although Yukai's photos hadn't ranked well in a recent photography competition, judging by the photos that had been circulated, his photography skills were clearly underestimated. Compared to most photographers in China, each of Yukai's photos holds its own emotion, as if you can tell through the image what Yukai was feeling at the time of the shot. While post-production editing certainly plays a role, the photographer's technique is also crucial. Joan took out another cigarette and lit it with his Xiaop lighter. "Open." Someone called out. A plump girl in a black uniform was pulling up the shutter. The crowd waiting around had noticeably increased. Besides the young people buying novels, he spotted someone who looked like his companion. It seemed I wasn't the only one drawn here by the parameters. Yukai's starry sky image, taken in the snowy region, is one of the most highly regarded in the industry. Countless photographers from small studios want to emulate Yukai's technique. 30 yuan, for them, it's a steal. It rained heavily on Saipan today. This is the legendary island weather. Even the weather forecast can't predict the nature of the clouds at sea. Only the most experienced sailors can discern the weather for the next few hours from subtle clues. Bored in his hotel room, Yukai browsed Weibo on his phone. Despite being away on a trip, his following continued to steadily grow. Following links left by several fans, Yukai stumbled upon photos of himself. The first showed him sitting in the sunset, the ocean breeze ruffling his hair and dress. The red of the distant coastline contrasted sharply with the blue of the surrounding area. A truly exceptional piece of photography. This photo had first been leaked by a marketing account on Weibo, and Yukai then realized the woman who had run away upon seeing him was the legendary paparazzi. There were also photos of him parasailing and banana boating. How long had that woman been following him? Yukai paid no attention to the question. Subconsciously, he hadn't realized he was a celebrity. While he knew to be careful not to be discovered walking down the street, he hadn't realized someone would specifically follow him and take sneaky photos. With less than 2 million followers on Weibo, why would they be taking sneaky photos of me? He might as well be taking photos of those with tens of millions of followers. At least they were all in China, and they'd have to pay such exorbitant travel expenses to follow him. If Yukai knew the woman had discovered him while on vacation, he'd be furious. The rain lasted for 3 hours, and all of Yukai's plans for the morning were scrapped. He had to take the diving certification test in the afternoon, so it seemed that he would not have much time to practice swimming today. After leaving the hotel, he took a 10-minute drive to the designated location. This was a building similar to a swimming pool. It looked like a blue warehouse from the outside. Once inside, there was a relatively large swimming pool in the center, surrounded by offices. It seemed that this was not just a place for diving exams. After telling his name to the beautiful woman at the front desk, he was informed that he was coming to a classroom that could accommodate about 50 people. This classroom was like a miniature university lecture hall. The blackboard was occupied by 4 LCD TVs. The instructor of the lecture came soon. He was a short old man who looked to be in his 40s or 50s. Judging from his facial features, he was also a Southeast Asian. Today I'll teach you the knowledge you need for diving. It's brief, but you must memorize it carefully. If you try to cheat, you'll regret it later when you need it underwater. Perhaps someone asked you this when you registered, but I need to ask again now. Do you have any major medical conditions, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, or bronchitis? No, everyone answered in unison. The old man looked around and nodded slowly. Very good, then let's begin the class. When you enter the ocean, you'll be surrounded by ocean pressure. Pressure is the weight of the gases in the atmosphere, called 1 bar, or 1 atmosphere. When you enter the water increases this pressure. A formula appeared on the LCD screen. This formula stated that for every 10 meters of water, the pressure increases by the equivalent of 1 atmosphere. Everyone listened intently, their expressions focused. The theoretical course was only this afternoon. And once it was over, there would be an exam immediately. Tomorrow would be the practical course. The old man was pleased with the students' serious expressions, and he relaxed his lecture. He said, "From this formula, we can see that the deeper you dive, the water pressure will reduce the volume of air inside your body and increase its density." Yukai was lost in thought. This old man seemed like an old professor who taught topology in college. I couldn't believe I didn't pay enough attention in college, and now, at 23, so long after graduation, I still have to sit here like a student listening to an old professor. Hey, guys, we're going to post recommendations tomorrow, and the first one is a category-specific recommendation, the most intense battleground. I studied the opponents today, and they're all very strong. I feel like I can't beat any of them. If we can't, we won't have any further recommendations. That's terrible. So everyone, remember to give me recommendations every day for the next week. I won't mind one too many. If you have a book list, please help Keisha add this book to it. This isn't a recommendation, it's a battle. I hope it gets featured on Sanjiang, or is featured on the homepage. I'll update 3 times in the first month of its release. Keep going. Chapter 61 Anna. There's a common misconception about deep diving. You don't have to know how to swim to learn deep diving, as deep diving is actually also called scuba diving. With the help of an oxygen tank, you can breathe independently, just like on land. So, of the 3 major challenges of swimming, holding your breath, breathing, and moving forward, you only need to focus on moving forward. There's no need to hold your breath or worry about breathing. If you do find yourself holding your breath, it's likely that something went wrong during the deep dive. But generally speaking, deep diving is more difficult than swimming because the challenges involve things you don't need to learn when you're learning to swim: equalizing pressure, maintaining buoyancy, and learning various diving hand signals. Deep underwater, speech is impossible, so hand signals become a crucial means of communication. Therefore, diving and swimming are 2 very different underwater sports. Yukai studied diligently for an entire afternoon and naturally passed the exam with ease. But what infuriated Yukai was that even if you didn't study hard, they would still find ways to make you pass when the exam came. Even if you couldn't remember a single question, the instructor would remind you of the answers. This time, 9 people came to PADI, Professional Association of Diving Instructors, to obtain their diving certifications. All passed and will return tomorrow for their second training session. The training primarily focuses on diving techniques and equipment, such as fins, scuba flippers, masks, regulators, buoyancy controllers, and, crucial for deep diving, tanks. The next day, Yukai arrived at the diving club early. The instructor wasn't the old man from yesterday, but a white woman in her 30s. This instructor was very serious, and if you didn't remember the hand signals and the functions of the various equipment, she wouldn't let you practice your swimming skills in the water. This left Yukai soaking in the pool until his skin turned pale, but no one was ready to actually get in the water. It was like learning to drive. Some people can't even master it after a month or 2, especially with an instructor, as their self-judgment is fundamentally lost. Moreover, they only had 2 days to learn so much, with the exam coming on the 3rd day. Yukai, fully outfitted in diving gear, sat by the pool, lost in thought. The pool, located in the center of the club, was 3 meters deep and was used for practicing equipment handling and neutral buoyancy. The female coach walked over to Yukai and sat down. She looked at the oxygen tank on his back and asked, "Why don't you take it off?" "I was worried I'd need it again," Yukai said. The female coach chuckled and said, "No need. Actually, what you're practicing today is what you'll be testing for tomorrow, and without sufficient depth, You won't be able to learn anything. Then she continued, you've memorized everything. I think if you're fine, you can take both the AO and AOW exams tomorrow. It's just a side job. The AO can dive to 18 meters, while the AOW can dive to 30 meters. You don't look unhappy. The female coach asked. Not really, Yukai said, taking off his mask. Just thinking about something. Yukai had secretly joined one of his reader groups. The readers seemed to have nothing to do all day. They didn't have to work or attend classes, just thinking about making trouble. So far, Yukai had noticed 3 people posting their tickets to Saipan in the group. He was considering whether to end his trip. He hadn't written a travelogue for the past few days, planning to upload a video using the footage he'd filmed after returning home. But he hadn't expected paparazzi to capture his photos. He hadn't yet visited the Blue Hole or watched the surfing competition, and he really didn't want to leave at this moment. He didn't know how many people were coming to Saipan. If there weren't many, he should be able to handle it, right? Yukai thought to himself, if there weren't many people, it wouldn't be too much trouble. Seeing Yukai's silence, the coach thought of her own autistic brother back in America. If he were more cheerful, wouldn't he be as handsome as this young man? She thought. She suddenly stood up and called to another coach, Anne, I'm leaving my students in your care, too. Shit. The man cursed, but nodded in agreement. She laughed and held out her hand to Yukai. Hey. Come on, I'll take you to relax. Leaving tourists feeling gloomy in Saipan isn't our style. Yukai looked at his fellow students, whose progress was far behind his own. It looked like they wouldn't be able to learn to dive for a while. So, he took the coach's outstretched hand and used it to help him stand. Let's get acquainted. My name is Anna. Yukai. Okay, Kai, let's go. She led Yukai out, and Yukai thought to himself that he should come up with a cool, memorable English name. He couldn't stand being called Kai. The thought of Kai reminded him of a watermelon head. Anna found a new diving suit according to Yukai's standards and had him get in an ATV with her. Then she drove out of the city and into the jungle. Yukai wasn't worried about Anna harming him. To Anna, she was the most dangerous person in the car. Occasionally, you'd see people riding ATVs on the road, speeding at top speed, leaving behind clouds of dust, followed by a dozen ATVs. This must be the site for Saipan's tourist attraction, the jungle off-roading. Due to the blurry view, Anna drove slower and asked Yukai, aren't you curious about what I want to take you to? Yukai pointed to the 70-centimeter tall diving equipment beside him and said, no need to guess, it's definitely going diving somewhere. Smart, Anna praised. I have a younger brother, he's probably 22 this year, and he has autism. He also has black hair, and he's just as handsome as you. Thank you. Instinctively, Yukai felt she was praising him. Yukai could see Anna's pride and joy when she mentioned her brother. It was no small feat for her to praise him, saying, as handsome as you, to Yukai. This proved that in her eyes, Yukai was just as perfect as her perfect brother. Where are we going diving? Yukai asked proactively. With all that equipment, it was obvious they weren't going snorkeling, but deep-sea diving in the ocean. Yukai's training had been excellent, he had memorized every maneuver perfectly, and his body remained energetic after completing so many underwater training sessions. Anna felt it was necessary to take him on a real deep dive. As for whether he had a diving license or not, who cared? I'll keep updating. Please help me vote for recommendations, add to the book list, and leave comments. That's all. Thanks to Pingayao Weicheng, Hong Ziansen, Yuan Shang, Zayolo, Mihu, and Fat Elephant for their donations. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Fisherman's Sword. The car drove along this dirt road for half an hour, crossing from one side of the island to the other. The waves were bigger here, and there was no beach to be seen, but there were many cliffs. The cliffs ranged from 20 to 30 meters to 40 to 50 meters. Compared to the beach near the Kingquin Hotel, this place felt like a wilderness. There were many tourists and modern facilities there, but here, modern buildings were rare, and there were only a few boats and speedboats. On one side, the sand was extremely fine, scoured by the sea for millennia, while here, it had remained unchanged for years. The dangerous cliffs were marked by only a low guardrail, Below, the waves crashed against the shore, and the steam rushed in with the sea breeze. Anna said, "Once a cliff is up ahead. By the way, are you from the island?" "No, I'm Chinese," Yukai said. Anna nodded, pointing to a small stone tablet in the distance. That's where the islanders jumped off the cliff after their defeat. When the Americans surrounded Saipan, the island nation's home island, and ran out of ammunition and food, the islanders jumped from here. Yet, I have a rough idea. Their history class covered the Asian theater of World War II in great detail. They heard that there were over 100 family members and over 100 girls' high school students on the island at the time. When the island was captured, the island commander ordered his men to take the women, the elderly, and children with fixed bayonets and commit suicide together on the cliffs at the north end of the island. Yukai also saw people paying their respects at the tablet from a distance. They were probably islanders. "I'm glad you're not here," Anna said. "If we want to pay our respects, we'll have to walk quite a long way. The road we came here doesn't lead directly to Bonsai Cliff." Anna led Yukai down a small path. A sloping channel shielded them from the raging waves. Beyond the channel lay a pool the size of a basketball court. It turned out to be a small dock. Not far from the sea, there was a wooden house. It was quite old, perhaps eroded by the sea, and moss had grown on the wood. In China, this kind of house would definitely be demolished. Anna shouted, "Dao Jet! Someone actually lives here?" Under Yukai's astonished gaze, a man, about 50 years old and about 1.7 meters tall, walked out. His skin was tanned a deep maroon, and his hair was black and curly. In his hand, he held a thick cigarette. He wouldn't live in a house like this, would he? No one on this island is poor. Thanks to the tourists this island attracts, they can earn money just by sitting there every day, not to mention the $200 subsidy each person receives from the United States every month. That's right, if they do nothing every day, just sleep at home and play games, they can still earn $200. "Hey, little Anna," he said, stubbing out his cigarette with his calloused hands. He walked over to the two of them and said, "Didn't you just come a few days ago? It's rare to see you come so often." The man reeked of the sea, the smell of dried salted fish, but this man was no salted fish. His muscles were muscular, exuding an air of toughness. "I brought my friend with me. Could you please go out to sea again?" Anna's tone was natural, suggesting they had known each other for quite some time. After Anna finished speaking, she introduced Yukai, "This is Dao Jet." Then, she introduced Yukai to Dao Jet, "This is Kai." Dao Jet stared at Yukai with interest for a moment before bursting into a hearty laugh, his dangerous eyes brimming with amusement. Yukai subconsciously glanced at himself but saw nothing amiss. "Stop laughing, okay?" Anna said disapprovingly. Dao Jet walked past the two of them, gazing out at the distant sea. "You can go out to sea, but only for 2 hours at most. In 2 hours, a big storm is coming." "How did you know?" Yukai looked in Dao Jet's direction. Over there, the vast ocean stretched as far as the eye could see, with only the nearby waves rolling in. The white clouds in the sky were large, and they would have been beautiful if used for wedding photos. How did he see that? Anna wasn't going to stay here for long anyway. She'd seen Yukai in a bad mood, so she wanted to take him out for a bit. 2 hours was more than enough. 2 hours is enough, she said. Dao Jet nodded, "Okay, I'll go get the boat." He strode forward with a swift movement, relighting his cigarette as he went. Anna followed him, pulling Yukai aboard. It was a fishing boat, about 6 meters long, not a small boat, but very old. The outside of the cab was rusty, with many words and numbers scrawled in black marker. They both wore their diving suits. All they had to do was strap on their oxygen tanks, masks, rebreathers, and other diving equipment before they could dive. A few minutes later, Yukai was ready, just clutching his rebreather and preparing to jump into the sea. But Yukai noticed the boat remained motionless. He had been holding his breath, eager to immediately take a dip, but now, after waiting for so long, the urge had dissipated, and he was actually a little afraid to enter the water. Unlike swimming, which remains above water, diving is entering a completely unfamiliar territory, with no view of the sky and no air. Anna, noticing Yukai's glint in her eyes, soothed him, "Don't be afraid, Dao Jet is waiting for the opportunity." She leaned over to Yukai, her arm around his shoulders, treating him like a younger brother. Dao Jet glanced at him, exhaled a long puff of air, and said, "The waves are too rough right now, making it difficult to get out to sea." We need to wait for them to calm down a bit before we can go out. He glanced at the surface and said, "It should take 2 or 3 minutes." Daoje was an old fisherman and a Christian who had lived his entire life beneath this cliff. He had a son and a daughter, both of whom worked in the city, and had opened a specialty shop to attract tourists. Daoje had no material needs, simply a boat that could sail was enough. With nothing else to do, he offered some tips on weather forecasting. "See those clouds? A thinner layer is slowly covering, creeping lower and lower. It looks like they'll soon become rain clouds." Yukai recognized rain clouds, but they didn't look like rain clouds right now. But according to Daoje, thin layers of clouds were covering the area, and perhaps in an hour or two, they would thicken and become rain clouds. "You've acquired a weather prediction skill. All right." Daoje exhaled into the sea, sending smoke flying. Then, with a sharp tug on the rope, a series of deafening motor sounds erupted from behind Yukai. Like a race car, the boat practically launched, its speed increasing in an instant. "Hold on!" Daoje shouted. Yukai quickly grabbed the side of the boat. The fishing boat was speeding through this smaller wave, aiming to break through the surge before the next one arrived and reached the calmer sea beyond. I recommend this book, called Return to the Ming Dynasty to Become a Tyrant. This is the best emperor I have seen recently, with both domineering and political schemes. She asked me to recommend the chapter, and I said I came to propose marriage. You can just go and take a look, and leave the recommendation votes for me. Please recommend. Chapter 63 Deep Sea Diving. The ferocious fishing boat was like a fine speedboat, its powerful thrusts parting the water, leaving countless whitecaps behind. While this maintained its forward speed, it couldn't maintain its stability. But a fishing boat isn't a speedboat after all. Maintaining balance at these speeds depended entirely on Daoje's skill at the helm. Waves lashed the boat's port side, forcing it to inevitably tilt. Daoje swung the rudder sharply to starboard, and the boat, like an object being tilted, suddenly let go. The right side of the hull plummeted to the surface. Yukai felt a sudden loss of control, like he was on a pirate ship, his hair flying. He gripped the railing even harder, even slightly buckling it. His strength now rivaled that of a trained boxer. The squeezed water, lashed against the hull, sent spray several meters high, drenching both Yukai and Anna. Anna, accustomed to this, remained calm, while Yukai was a mixture of excitement and fear. Ever since Yukai started riding the banana boat on the beach, he'd discovered his love for this thrilling sport. But while he sought the thrill, he also feared the dangers. He hadn't yet reached the point where he'd risk his life for some thrilling game. Watching Daoje at the helm, smoking a cigarette, singing and laughing heartily, Yukai couldn't help but feel admiration and envy. He felt he'd never reach Daoje's carefree spirit. The boat finally crossed the coast just as a huge wave rose. The roar of the motor continued, but the roar of the waves that had accompanied him earlier had gradually subsided. Daoje's fishing boat, once again, easily triumphed over the waves. Anna reached out her right hand, placed it on Yukai's, and gently squeezed it. "Don't be afraid," she said. The deep sea is a common fear for everyone, and Yukai was no exception. Anna knew this well. Having been a diving instructor for a long time, she knew that nearly all of her students, whether optimistic, brave, cheerful, or even hot-tempered, would become timid when faced with the actual seabed. The boat continued forward for a while, then Daoje picked up a coil of rope and threw it overboard, saying, "You guys can dive here. A big storm is coming, and there will be a lot of small animals down there, so be careful." Yukai and Anna had already put on their gear, so it was time to dive. After replying to Daoje, Anna took the lead and floated up, raising her hands and making a no sign above her head. This signified okay, signaling Yukai to quickly dive in. Yukai took a deep breath, feeling the warmth and satisfaction of the air before entering the water. Then, holding his mask with his right hand and his BCD regulator with his left, he jumped forward. With a splash of water, Yukai entered the ocean. He inflated his BCD, buoyancy control device, his buoyancy increased, and he emerged from the water. He had mastered all the techniques during his training, and he executed them with great skill. Anna nodded. Since they couldn't speak, they communicated using diving hand signals. She gestured, "Follow me," and Yukai extended his hand to indicate OK. A BCD is a vest-like device. To the uninitiated, one might mistake it for a fixed device to hold an oxygen tank, but it's actually hollow. Yukai held the BCD controller, inflating and deflating it, controlling his buoyancy in the water. With practice, he could maintain a steady position for extended periods without diving or rising. As he descended deeper, visibility decreased, and the light grew dimmer. Yukai had been underwater before while snorkeling, but back then, the sun was clear, and he could surface and see the sun by simply looking up and swimming upwards. It was nothing like the underwater experience of today. When he looked up, sunlight would hit the water, but it was like an opaque sheet, completely absorbing the sunlight, leaving only a vast, luminous surface. All the sounds heard on shore vanished. It was a different world. But it wasn't completely silent. Yukai could hear his own breathing, the air expelling from his snorkel, and the sound of the sea flowing around him. At that moment, a fish passed by Yukai. Deep-sea fish typically have poor vision, so it had to run right up to Yukai's face before it could clearly discern the two massive creatures. Then, with a swipe of its tail, it swiftly turned and returned at twice the speed it had come. The sound of the water rushing from the fish was incredibly clear to Yukai's ears. Marine creatures rely on these currents to perceive the world, as much as a spider relies on its web. When Yukai looked at Anna, she paused, held her fingers parallel to Yukai, backs facing upward, tilted left and right, and pointed at her ears. She repeated the gesture. Yukai understood this was a call to equalize his ears. Although he didn't feel any abnormalities in his ears yet, he still repeated the maneuver. He pressed his tongue against the roof of his mouth, pinched his nose with his hand, and swallowed. He felt a suction in his ears. Then, Yukai gave Anna an OK sign, and Anna led him down. Not far below was a large coral reef. Coral is very fragile in the sea, so swimming over it requires extreme caution. Fish were plentiful near the coral. There's the ugly-looking grouper, with its large mouth and densely covered blue spots, giving it a pale blue appearance against the seabed. While somewhat unsightly, this fish has excellent meat and is perfect for steaming. Then there's the parrotfish, with its rainbow-like body. Its distinctive poop is a golden pentagon the size of an ant. There's a place on Saipan where this stuff abounds, but it's definitely not called poop, it's called star sand. Countless people go collecting it every day, hoping to find seven-sided star sand, which is said to bring good luck. On the coral reefs, you can also see a very cute crab called the king crab. These crabs have very little meat and are not aggressive, surviving on the seabed's mud and sand. They have no flesh on their bodies. Just as Yukai was about to look away to find something else, something swiftly grabbed the adorable king crab and slowly dragged it away. It was a moray eel. And you have to say, moray eels are truly ugly. Yukai suddenly made a new discovery. Beneath the coral, a tiny shark was slithering among the coral. It was tiny, only about the length of Yukai's arm. They were so adorable that Yukai couldn't imagine why they would become so ferocious when they grew up. Suddenly, Anna swam over and gestured to Yukai to stop. After a moment, perhaps thinking about something, she made a "be careful, follow me" gesture. What did she discover? Yukai thought as he swam along. Chapter 64 Fish Storm. Yukai crossed his legs and swam, avoiding the coral reefs and keeping pace with Anna. A large, dark shadow loomed in their direction, alive and moving. Had they encountered a whale? But the water was so shallow, how could a whale appear in such a place? The water wasn't very deep here, less than 40 meters. Whales typically stayed around 200 meters underwater during the day and rarely visited places like this. As he got closer, Yukai realized it wasn't a whale. It was a fish storm. A fish storm refers to a large, cylindrical school of fish that gathers in a storm-like formation. As Anna and Yukai swam closer, the school split into two groups, circling the two and converging behind him. Countless fish swirled around you, so fast that only their shadows could be seen. Dazzling is the perfect expression for this situation. Puff. Just as he had lost focus on the fish, Yukai accidentally expelled his respirator. Panicked for a moment, he quickly remembered his lessons and exhaled slowly and steadily. Simultaneously, Yukai reached behind him with his right hand and retrieved his respirator. Seeing Yukai breathing air again, Anna breathed a sigh of relief and gestured, "Ascend." Though somewhat reluctant, Yukai knew he had to obey on his instructions while underwater, so he replied, "Okay." He immediately inflated his BCD and ascended using his buoyancy. Rising to about 10 meters above the surface, out of the reach of the fish, Anna instructed, "Stay buoyant." Maintaining buoyancy underwater, neither ascending nor descending, was the most challenging part of tomorrow's test, but Yukai had been practicing neutral buoyancy in the pool since morning. He quickly mastered his ascent. Anna pointed behind Yukai, and when he turned around, he saw a shark slowly moving about 10 meters away. Yukai's face instantly turned gray, his brain whirring, and his entire body tense like a rock. It wasn't the small shark he'd seen earlier, but a full-grown shark over a meter long. Anna swam over to Yukai and signaled, "Calm down, breathe." She then swam forward, drawing closer to the shark. Yukai's eyes widened, and he waved Anna back, but she relentlessly charged toward the shark. He gestured back, "Look at me, it's safe. Calm down, breathe." Anna quickly swam to the shark's side, matching its speed, and placed a hand on its dorsal fin. Seeing them drifting further away, Yukai lost his fear and hurried after them. He feared the shark would suddenly go mad and turn to bite Anna. He had to stay close to them to feel at ease, so he could swim to her if the situation became dire. But something strange was happening. The shark and Anna remained peaceful, swimming slowly and aimlessly, as if it hadn't seen her at all. When the shark circled and faced Yukai head-on, goosebumps spread across his body, and his heart began to race. "Safe," Anna gestured to him. Yukai gasped for breath, his arms and legs barely able to move. But with each deep breath, the fear within him quickly dissipated, leaving a deep sense of peace within him. Before he could even consider why this had happened, the shark was already approaching. Yukai chose to trust Anna and didn't flee immediately. Instead, he stood his ground, only slightly sideways, away from the shark. The shark ignored the person in front of it and slowly swam past him. Yukai slowly reached out his hand, imitating Anna's approach, and gently placed it on the shark's skin. There wasn't much touch or warmth, but Yukai felt like he was touching the ocean. Soon, the shark swam past Yukai and away into the distance. Pulling the rope Daoja had dropped onto the boat, Anna pulled out a respirator and laughed heartily. Yukai followed her, and upon boarding the boat, he immediately removed his respirator, breathing in the nostalgic air of land. "Hey! Stop laughing. You'll get a stitch in the side if you keep laughing like that." Anna sat up, squeezing her hair with her hands. She said to Yukai, "That scene just now was just like a scene from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where humans and aliens come into contact. Not that exaggerated, right?" Yukai wiped his hair with a towel. "But I was really scared just now. You went right up there. Aren't you afraid they'd bite you? Who told you sharks bite? Have you seen too many movies?" Anna explained to Yukai, "Sharks generally don't bite. Humans are completely unattractive to them. In fact, 99% of shark attacks are misunderstandings. A human lying on a surfboard looks no different to a shark than a sea lion, and sea lions are one of their food sources. So encountering a shark while diving isn't dangerous?" Yukai asked. Yukai had been to an aquarium before, and the sharks there were not only small but also not very ferocious looking. The shark he had just encountered in the sea was covered in scars, with glowing eyes like a zombie from a Western horror movie. So scary, but it really wouldn't bite? "Actually, many people are misled by movies," Anna said. "Sharks don't attack humans out of desire, but rather because the light and sound we emit irritate them, leading them to attack out of curiosity or fear." "All right." Daoja interrupted. "Now is not the time for science education. Hurry, we have to return." Yukai looked into the distance. The clouds had lowered, dark clouds had formed, and the sky was darkening at a noticeable rate. In such conditions, the waves were even more ferocious. However, the two returned just in time. They had originally planned to play for 2 hours, but Yukai's excessive use of oxygen had nearly depleted it after 40 minutes, so they returned early. Any later, they would have had to take a detour to reach shore. Daoji's piloting skills were impeccable. Although the fishing boat was constantly swaying on the sea, it successfully entered the waterway and then returned to the small dock in front of the wooden house. The dark clouds were approaching Saipan. Yukai had previously acquired the skill of weather prediction, so he could predict the weather conditions in a short period of time. The dark clouds would definitely reach Saipan within the hour. "We have to go back as soon as possible," Yukai said to Anna. Daoja nodded and said, "Kai is right, the rain will come soon, of course, if you are willing to stay here." Yukai hugged Daoja before leaving. Yukai had never admired someone so much before. The way Daoja drove the fishing boat in the waves made a deep impression on Yukai. Was it free and easy or confident? Yukai didn't understand. But it was really manly. There's a group. If you are interested, you can join and chat, talk about travel destinations, or share travel stories, etc. You can also come in and lurk 539,747,260 asking for recommendation. Chapter 65 Blue Hole. Torrential rain fell all night, accompanied by thunder and lightning. The winds battled the island's trees, ripping at their branches and threatening to uproot them. The rain didn't subside until around 7 or 8 the next day. The clouds dispersed, and the sun peeked out. Yukai walked on the ground, the sun still scorching. The rain had done nothing to cool the air, only making the already humid and hot weather even more oppressive. This was expected to persist all day. Today, I had to travel to Tinian to take my diving certification exam. Tinian is no longer part of Saipan, but a separate city in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. However, it's not far from Saipan, offering an unobstructed view of the sea. You can even vaguely see it on clear days. While diving is possible everywhere on Saipan, we were all newbies, so we had to minimize the risk during the exam. We had to fly for $25. When buying a ticket, the ticket seller will ask you about your weight and the weight of your belongings. They'll then assign you a seat, ranked from 1 to 7, from heaviest to lightest. When Yukai saw the plane, he was stunned. How could anyone still use this kind of plane? He'd initially assumed he'd be flying by helicopter, but he never imagined it was a World War II-era aircraft, powered by the airflow generated by the spinning propellers. He'd assumed such planes were only used in movies, fit to be displayed in museums, but he hadn't expected them to still be in service in 2019. How old is this antique? While it looked scary, the flight was relatively stable. The plane wasn't flying high, and looking out a window, the view is similar to that of a parasailing plane. But the roar of the engines and the whirring of the propellers gave Yukai a sense of absurdity that he'd traveled through time. He arrived at the exam venue on time. The exam required 3 dives, graded by the instructor, and finally a 300-meter dive to receive his certificate. For Yukai, that 300-meter dive was a piece of cake. Yesterday, he'd been underwater for over half an hour before coming ashore, and diving 300 meters was a mere matter of minutes. He'd breezed through the exam, earning his certification effortlessly, even at the Advanced Underwater (AOW) level. Tinian Island boasts numerous World War II-era structures, like the remains of a Japanese communications station and scenic spots like Suicide Cliff. Yukai suspected the islanders were incredibly fond of suicide. They had suicide spots everywhere, both on Saipan and Tinian. Furthermore, Tinian boasted a large, modern, luxurious casino hotel, even pricier than the Kingquan Hotel. After exploring the area in the afternoon, Yukai boarded a small plane back to Saipan. Diving the Blue Hole had been Yukai's goal in learning to dive, and while it wasn't as appealing to him as it once was, it was still worth a visit. Located on the northeast corner of Saipan, it was Saipan's most famous and challenging diving spot. Yukai considered himself a seasoned diver. He'd spent half an hour underwater, touched a shark, and so diving through the Blue Hole into the Pacific Ocean wouldn't be a piece of cake. There were many tourists here, but they were mostly there for snorkeling. The underwater photographers working there were the ones making the money. Long lines of people lined up to take photos, and a set cost over $600. Yukai was so jealous that his teeth were aching. How much money would he make in a day? He went to the diving club and told them he wanted to dive the Blue Hole. After showing his diving certificate, the person in charge asked, "How many oxygen bottles have you used?" 6. All during training, and a whole bottle in the ocean. Just like when someone asks you how many hours you've played PUBG, in the diving community, proficiency is directly proportional to how many oxygen bottles you've used. They're called oxygen bottles, but they're actually filled with compressed air, just for the sake of clarity. 6 bottles? That's too few? Okay, let's get 2 people to accompany you, he said. Yukai, fearing danger, agreed. It certainly wouldn't be free, otherwise why would anyone go into the water to protect you? But the cost was acceptable to Yukai. He was eager to see why the Blue Hole was rated the second best cave diving destination in the world. After donning their wetsuits at the club, Yukai and 2 other divers headed to the Blue Hole. Regardless of the time of year, the Blue Hole boasts a steady flow of visitors, always busy with photos or diving. From the shore, the Blue Hole's waters appear hidden beneath rocks, accessible only by descending a flight of over 100 steps. The only way to enter the water is by jumping off a rock over a meter above the surface, the simplest and most practical option. The 2 divers, both regulars, gathered their gear and jumped in first. Yukai waited until they were out of the way before jumping in. Then, the two came over to help him load his oxygen tanks. The cost was only a few thousand yuan, more than the artistic photos these people were taking. Their actions attracted many surface swimmers, who curiously watched the three men checking their gear. Most of the visitors were snorkelers or free divers. Deep diving in the blue hole is reserved for professional divers, and the majority of those who visited lacked a diving license. The exam was cumbersome, expensive, and time-consuming. After a final check of the action camera, confirming it was functioning properly, Yukai put his rebreather in his mouth and nodded to them. Then, the three of them deflated their BCDs and dived simultaneously. They had arrived in another world, a world where the ocean not only blocked out the clamor of tourists but also the bright sunlight. The waters beneath were a deep blue. The blue beneath the blue hole was an electric blue, heralded as unique in the world. It was a color you couldn't find anywhere else. Beautiful, Yukai thought. Unable to speak now, he gestured, "Let's go." The two divers gave him an okay sign. They had swum here countless times, sometimes even guiding complete non-scuba divers through it, a real hassle. The biggest challenge was equalizing the pressure. Tourists without formal diving training were plagued by pressure in their ears and sometimes water in their masks. Now that this tourist had a diving license, the journey should be much easier. Far below the deep blue ocean lay a cave shaped like a giant mouth. This was where Yukai and the other two would soon be heading, swimming from here to the distant Pacific Ocean. It is difficult to see larger underwater animals in this open water. The coming and going of tourists causes many marine creatures living here to swim to the depths of the blue hole or directly to the Pacific Ocean. Chapter 66. I'm leaving tomorrow. If, according to evolutionary theory, our distant ancestors lived in the sea for 300 million years, Yukai's adaptation to the ocean was similar to a wanderer gradually returning to his homeland. From being timid and afraid to enter the water, to gradually adapting to the ocean currents and enjoying the sensation of flying through the water by swaying his body, the entire process seemed to take only a few days. Blue hole diving is different from diving elsewhere. Once inside, a current flowing from the Pacific Ocean pushes the contents toward the island with a constant force. This effect is likely related to the tides, but it's very slight and doesn't affect their movement under the sea. Diving in a blue hole isn't without risk. From the moment you enter, you must avoid mistakes. Any mishap could result in death. Therefore, even though a blue hole is not far from the ocean, diving there is not for the inexperienced. The longer Yukai spends in the water, the more agile he becomes. He now swims at a controlled speed, otherwise he could easily leave the three-person group. And after yesterday's shark scare, Yukai's fear of the ocean seems to have completely disappeared. The blue hole has 3 entrances. Yukai and his companions chose to enter through the second entrance, swim to the Pacific Ocean, and then exit through the third entrance, completing the entire swim. One diver led the way, with Yukai in the middle and the other protecting him. Throughout the swim, Yukai felt the two divers were moving too slowly. Perhaps it was due to his body's ability to withstand greater water pressure, and his heart could support greater movements underwater. So, to him, the slow pace was like slow motion on land. Noticing Yukai's erratic swimming rhythm, the person next to him gestured, "Are you okay?" "Okay," Yukai replied. What else could he do? He couldn't just say they were slowing down for him. He didn't realize the two were slowing down for him. In their eyes, Yukai was just a rookie with only a few oxygen tanks. Yukai didn't see many creatures in the blue hole, and the light was dim. The only bright spot was the distant exit, emitting a captivating blue light. 20 minutes later, the group swam out of the blue hole and into the Pacific Ocean. This side was a cliff, so there was no place to land. They had to stop briefly before turning back. This brief stop was to capture some images. In the spirit of saying no trip is complete without photos, Yukai had a diver record his swimming style. This was the bluest water Yukai had ever seen, and it would be a shame not to capture some. No large marine life was spotted, only small fish. But Yukai had lost interest in those, so he turned back. Exiting the third entrance, they prepared to pull the rope ashore. The waves were strong, and after surfacing, the waves crashed against the rocks, with whitecaps reaching a height of 1 or 2 meters. Those reaching shore had to hold on to the rope firmly. This rock was not only a landing point for divers but also a popular photo spot for tourists. Many of the photos of the blue hole seen online were taken here. Upon reaching shore, Yukai panted and pushed his hair back to remove the water. A diver patted Yukai on the shoulder and asked, How was it? This should be your first solo dive, right? Yukai nodded, almost. This was his first dive since getting his certification, so it was quite memorable. Yukai checked his smartwatch. He'd reached a maximum depth of 31.3 meters, and the water temperature was 25 degrees Celsius. The action camera wasn't showing clear footage, but it was still running, likely recording everything he'd done in the ocean. "Brother," a diver called out to Yukai, "our car is up there. Do you want to come back to the club with us?" "Yes," Yukai said, his clothes still inside the club. Wearing a wetsuit on land wasn't a good idea. A wetsuit's primary function is to protect the diver's body temperature, which is crucial underwater. But wearing a wetsuit on land was simply unthinkable. And wearing one near the equator like Saipan was incredibly hot. Yukai took off his fins and held them in his hand as he climbed the ladder with them. Because it was so hot, he took off the top of his wetsuit and hung it around his waist, walking naked. The other two were in a similar situation. Walking around in a wetsuit under the sun was pure idiocy. Looking at Yukai's physique, one person, envious, said with a smile, "How did you train? You look so skinny, yet you have such well-proportioned muscles." Yukai replied, "Just pure training, no protein powder." While Yukai didn't build his muscles himself, who hasn't explored fitness? He still has at least 7 or 8 fitness videos in his collection on Bilibili. Perhaps it was because of those fitness videos that he'd lost weight. A black SUV was parked on the side of the road. Seeing the three approaching, the driver took his feet off the steering wheel, put his phone in his pocket, and asked, "Did everything go well?" "Very well," the diver said. Yukai wanted to go back and edit the videos he'd filmed over the past few days, so he changed at the diving club and returned to the hotel. Tomorrow is the first Saipan amateur kiteboarding competition. Dinan had returned early today, and he'd already seen everything there was to do in Saipan. After the competition, he'd head home. He set up a parasol on the hotel's beach and lounging on a beach chair, watching the scantily clad girls in the distance. If he were 2 years younger, he'd definitely join them. Now, Alice, he's old. It feels like he's aged so quickly after getting married. From a distance, he saw Yukai exit the car, carrying a large backpack. Dinan's eyes lit up, and he called out, "Kai? Can't you just call me Yi?" Yukai sighed, shook his head, and walked toward Dinan. "Did you go out to play today?" Yukai asked, then sat down on the beach beside him, dropping the gear on his back with a clang. It weighed over 30 pounds. It didn't feel like much in the ocean, but on land, without training, it was impossible to carry it very far. "I just got back." "Did you go diving?" Dinan asked. "Obviously." Yukai patted the gear he had set aside. He'd bought all of it himself. He never bought cheap things, and the stuff had covered part of his travel expenses to Tinian Island. Dinan sipped his orange juice, ignoring Yukai. After finishing, he continued, "I'm leaving tomorrow." "Oh, so doesn't that mean there's a surfing competition tomorrow?" Yukai had wanted to participate, but time had flown by so quickly. This competition had come so suddenly, and Yukai hadn't prepared at all. What a shame. Dinan tilted his neck, staring at Yukai in astonishment. "Am I talking to you about the competition? Someone's asking about the group. Let me tell you again, it's 539,747,260. I just changed the profile, but I can't, otherwise I'd put it in the profile. Thanks to brother, book friend 20180707072712578, Yingju, Dorothy, Body in the Light, and others for their tips. Thank you all. Please recommend. Please recommend. Chapter 67 Kite Surfing Competition. Dublin, Ireland. Saoirse walked out of City University indignantly, cursing as she walked. They said they were going to test instrumental proficiency, but the interview still requires a college degree. Shit. She'd lived alone since high school. With her parents gone and no desire to go to college, she dropped out to form a band. Her band wasn't profitable, but she at least enjoyed it. If she hadn't met Yukai, Saoirse might have spent her life playing violin in a band, then married a local instrumentalist and lived out her life there. But Yukai's arrival changed her mind. Yukai was handsome, traveled extensively, danced, played guitar, and was a singer-songwriter whose single song could easily make the Billboard charts. She, on the other hand, had been languishing in this country, hoping to get into university through music and earn a professorship. But she was rejected every time because she didn't have a college degree. That bitch plays violin as well as I do. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She made a long-distance call. Saipan. Late at night, in the early hours of the morning. Yukai was awakened by the blaring of his alarm. Or maybe he wasn't awake, but simply answered the phone subconsciously. Hello. Are you sleeping? Damn it, I got rejected by that old bastard. He actually said I couldn't be a university professor without a college degree. I'm obviously more skilled than that bitch, so why didn't he hire me? A musician. Yukai woke up. He put the phone on speakerphone and took it in his hand, then got out of bed and poured himself a cup of hot water. Actually, it was normal for Saoirse to fail the interview. Not to mention her lack of a college degree, she was only 20 years old. What university would accept a 20-year-old professor? The students were all older than her. Hello. Are you there? Yes, Yukai put down the cup and said, in that case, why don't you go out for a walk and relax? Come to China. I happen to have some free time. He had previously invited her to Saipan, but Saoirse was preparing for the interview at the time and didn't come. There was a long silence, and then a hello came from the other end, and then the phone was hung up. Yukai sighed helplessly, stroking his hair and shaking his head slowly. It seemed he couldn't return directly to China this time, he'd have to go to Ireland. He'd just slumped back into bed, tucking himself under the covers, when the phone rang again. When can I go? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Clear Spring Flowing Cup, the Saipan Visitor Invitational Tournament. Today we'll see a fantastic competition. This was Gungkanjima. The waters surrounding this small island were clear and calm, with no reefs. Until today, it had been a haven for snorkelers. But today, it had been temporarily transformed into Happy Valley-like amusement park. Yukai didn't think this was a good idea. Most of the tourists here were adults, and anything too childish would seem childish. The hottest area on the island today was naturally the surfing area. Several people preparing for the competition were warming up in the sea, their cool moves occasionally drawing screams. Beyond it was a half-pipe skateboarding area, where 3 teenagers were having a blast, not even afraid of falling. There was also a cycling race around the island, which was also quite fun. Before the competition began, Dinan had a little fun with Yukai, but was completely crushed by him. Although Dinan was a professional athlete, his core strength was no match for Yukai. Yukai pedaled tirelessly throughout the cycling race, breaking the competition record. The main event of the day was the surfing preparation area, where the largest crowds remained. Kitesurfing was a relatively new sport, not widely practiced at the time. It had just been invented by a world champion windsurfer. The difference between kitesurfing and regular surfing was that kitesurfing used a paraglider-like prop. The kite was inflated, and the wind blew it freely across the ocean. Today's competitors were mostly beginners, with only a few who had already been there, invited by Saipan to serve as scouts. Perhaps the winner would be one of them. Yukai was eager to try this. It was fast, and the ability to fly with the wind was impressive. Dinan sat on the judging panel. Not only did he have to judge, he also served as a commentator. The generous invitation fee wasn't in vain. After the competition, he would have to perform a performance. There are 6 contestants competing in the semifinals. The one in blue is Park Eun-hye, the one in black is Leonard Corey, and the one in orange is Jacob. The audience cheered loudly. After all, this sport is truly eye-catching. Park Eun-hye did a beautiful somersault. It's the first somersault in this competition. Let's give her a big round of applause. Someone received the initial cheers, and the other contestants had to gather their strength, preparing for a more challenging trick when they took the stage to draw even more cheers. Flirting is all the rage these days. But the harsh and well-known reality is that no matter how much you tinker with your skills, your ultimate success still comes down to your looks. If there weren't any competitions, where would the audience be looking? Of course, at the handsome men or beautiful women around you. So, if you lack good looks, you can only make up for it with other skills, like mastering a sport that exudes impressive charisma. Surfing is undoubtedly one of the best ways to enhance your charisma. The second contestant was Jacob. After entering the arena, he soared for a moment, then immediately stepped on the throttle, sending his kite rocketing into the air, carrying him at least 5 meters above the water. Jacob spun rapidly in the air, mistaking the bar for his hands, missing the initial grasp. His mind was in turmoil, and he forgot how to control the kite. The kite carried him over 10 meters high, and he finally recovered and slowed it down. Oh. Jacob's mistake is serious. It's seriously impacting his next move. I don't think he'll have the courage to try any more tricks, and his score will be much lower than Park Eun-hye's. Right now, Park Eun-hye, in blue, is in first place, and Jacob is in second. He's 4.6 points behind the top spot, a dismal score. Next is contestant number 3, Yi Bowen. Can the young Chinese athlete surpass Park Eun-hye and take first place? Ye Kai watched his fellow Chinese competitor. Yi Bowen's performance was average. He made no mistakes, but neither did he make any spectacular moves. He scored 8.2 points, placing him in second place. Ye Kai envied the others, who soared through the waves like flying swords. 2 hours later, the surfing competition concluded. The champion of this race was Baker, who came in fourth. Ye Kai often saw Baker on the beach of the hotel. He was also one of the people invited by Saipan. Chapter 68. China is so big. That night, Dinan and Ye Kai were waiting to board their flight at the Saipan airport. Their flight destinations were different, but both arrived around 11 p.m., so they agreed to come to the Saipan airport together. In the airport restaurant, Dinan was showing Ye Kai videos of his previous competitions. These videos are hard to find online, especially in China, where at most you can only see highlights of a single competition. Only professional players and organizations would collect complete competitions like this. This was a competition in Australia in April this year. My home is not far from this beach, and you're always welcome to come and play, Dinan introduced to Ye Kai. Ye Kai looked at the video and asked, "Are you going to let your daughter learn to surf?" Dinan had been married for 4 years and had a 2-year-old daughter. Ye Kai had seen Dinan and his daughter on video. The little girl had big eyes and looked very cute. Mentioning his daughter, Dinan's expression brightened. He stretched and said, "I don't know, but if she wants to, she'll be the best surfer in Australia, even better than her dad. But if she doesn't want to learn surfing, I respect her opinion. I want her to pursue a career she loves, you know. Even though it's difficult. She has the best dad in the world," Ye Kai praised. Meanwhile, the surfer in the video encountered a wave over 3 meters high, but he managed to ride it and break out of the corkscrew at the last moment. "That's a cool move," Ye Kai exclaimed. Dinan glanced at the video, nodded, and said, "That's the best professional surfer in America. A tough guy." "Really? Is he better than you?" Ye Kai searched online for Dinan's experience. He was a regular at the annual World Surfing Championship finals, winning the championship trophy almost every year. He was also proficient in windsurfing and kitesurfing, a versatile water sports expert. He ate French fries and laughed. Who could possibly know? Surfing isn't like sprinting or swimming, where it's all about physical skill. It's more about the quality of the waves, and it's all about luck. Seeing Ye Kai's love for surfing competitions, Dinan said, "I'll send you the information about them. And if you're free, I hope you can come to Australia and we can go surfing together." "That would be great," Ye Kai said, handing Dinan his phone. The afternoon competition had been incredibly exciting, especially Dinan's performance after he took the stage. The professional surfers lived up to their reputation, their movements flowing and graceful, their boards more maneuverable than skateboards used on land. Ye Kai instantly fell in love with this sport. The flight to Hong Kong Island was due to depart at 10:30 p.m., with a layover. Ye Kai checked the time and said, "I'll be leaving now. I'll contact you when I get back." "Goodbye," Dinan said, standing up and giving Ye Kai a hug. Living near each other at the King Kwun Hotel, the two often chatted on the beach, and over time, they became friends. All the bulky items had been checked in, so he was only carrying the travel bag he'd brought with him. In flight, there were no direct flights from Saipan to Chengdu, so all flights had to be transferred in Hong Kong Island, where he could also get his tax refund. Ye Kai had to stay in Hong Kong Island today, waiting for Saoirse, who was arriving at 5 p.m. There were no direct flights from Ireland to Shuangliu Airport, so she had to transfer in Hong Kong Island Airport. This was Saoirse's first time abroad, and she didn't speak the language, so Ye Kai was worried about letting her go directly to Chengdu alone. Not only was this Saoirse's first time abroad, but it was also her first time flying. Her country was so small, she could easily travel between cities by bus. Flights were usually for international flights, and few people flew locally. While she waited for the flight, the car had already departed from Dublin and arrived in Cole. After searching for her ticket for a long time, Saoirse read the words on it, Aer Lingus, so I should go to the Aer Lingus counter. She recalled the instructions Ye Kai had given her and had just finished checking in. As the plane lifted off, she watched her country fade from the window and wondered, will things get better? This usually strong girl began to feel lost as she left her country. After more than 10 hours of flight, Saoirse was exhausted. She had only slept 2 or 3 hours on the plane and hadn't gotten a good night's rest. She did enjoy the airplane food, though, and could order it herself. As she followed the crowd out of the terminal, Yukai was the first thing she saw. He looked just like when she left, a man who would turn heads wherever he stood. Saoirse smiled faintly and then took off running, suitcase in hand. Yukai's smile froze. The next moment, Saoirse dropped her luggage and threw herself at him. Look out! He quickly threw away the sign with Saoirse's name on it, one arm wrapped around Saoirse's legs, the other around her slender waist, and took several steps back before steadying himself. If Yukai had been prepared, he wouldn't have been so flustered. Seeing her running towards him, he'd assumed she'd just give him a hug, but he'd actually landed on him. Get down! Yukai's eyes suddenly widened, staring at the beautiful woman so close, her eyes tightly closed. Her eyelashes were long and beautiful. As a Northern European, Saoirse's skin was far superior to that of a Southern European, so tender it looked as if you could squeeze water out of it. After a moment of distraction, Yukai responded. This was a two-person game. Suddenly, the crowd applauded, and someone enviously said, the guy is so handsome, and the girl is so beautiful. They're like movie stars. I'm so jealous. They found such a beautiful Western girl. Yukai suddenly came to his senses, patted Saoirse on the back, and said, get down. Let's go. We're going to be in trouble. As a celebrity with millions of followers, being photographed would be a disaster. He had been working hard to disappear from the entertainment industry. He hadn't posted any travelogues on Weibo, written any new novels, or even uploaded any videos he had finished. He loved sharing his life with others, but only if it wasn't disturbed. He helped Saoirse with her luggage and found a car outside the airport. Opening the car door and letting her sit inside, Yukai said, you're feeling down. Get a good night's rest today, and we'll go back tomorrow. After Yukai sat down, Saoirse asked, is your home far away? Too far. It'll take 3 hours to fly tomorrow. A 3-hour flight? Saoirse thought, even if it only takes an hour to fly from Ireland to London, England, how could it take 3 hours to fly from China? Saoirse gasped, China is so big. Please recommend. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Buffet. Even after leaving for a while, Chengdu remained cold. Sichuan province lies in a basin, lacking horizontal convection at the same altitude. This means that winds from the coast can't directly penetrate the cities within the basin, making hot days even hotter. In winter, moisture sinks, and the cold, combined with the pervasive humidity, creates a bone-chilling coldness that northerners can't comprehend. Yukai couldn't understand why cities further north all had heating, but Sichuan didn't. When they got off the plane, Yukai made Saoirse wear a down jacket. There's a kind of coldness you get when your boyfriend thinks you're cold. He wasn't ready for Saoirse to meet his parents, but she could definitely use it with friends. Monkey had always mocked his aesthetic taste. Keep laughing. Yukai's left and right hands were hauling luggage, his diving equipment and Saoirse's clothes, toiletries, and other belongings. Saoirse was carrying Yukai's travel bag in his own shoulder bag. A camera was slung across her chest. Are you cold? Yukai asked. Saoirse was speechless. She felt she wouldn't feel cold even at -10 degrees Celsius, so how much was Yukai wearing? I feel like I'm going to die of the heat if I don't find a place to stay. Yukai chuckled twice, as if to ease his awkwardness. Though he didn't say anything, his pace gradually quickened. Saoirse followed Yukai closely, admiring the exotic scenery. Ireland had few tall buildings, while Chengdu was rife with dozens of stories. The population of just one district in Chengdu was several times that of the entire population of Ireland. Yukai's apartment in Chengdu was rented, and its lease expired at the end of December, meaning he still had 30 days to live here. After that, he planned to move to a new place, at least one with a larger room. We're here, Yukai said, opening the door. Saoirse poked her head in and looked around before even changing her shoes. It was a simple house. Upon entering, There was a shoe cabinet on the right and a large full-length mirror on the left. The living room, with floor-to-ceiling windows, opened up to the front. Saoirse set down her camera and other belongings on the living room table and began exploring the house. She entered the bedroom and quickly emerged, running through the living room to the bathroom. Yukai's rented apartment wasn't great. With a monthly rent of 800 yuan, he couldn't get the best place in downtown Chengdu. But the location was decent. Every morning, the balcony greeted him with the first rays of dawn. Unobstructed by tall buildings, he could easily see the park in the distance. Yukai put his things away, lay down on the sofa, and said to Saoirse, "Stop shopping. I'll take you out for a nice dinner later." "A nice dinner? What kind of a nice dinner?" "A nice dinner, anyway." Yukai had no idea where to eat. Yesterday, Yukai asked Sun Shang where he'd like to treat a guest in Chengdu, and Sun Shang had volunteered to take care of the reception. Saoirse was fascinated by everything and couldn't wait to go out and play. Yukai and Sun Shang were constantly chatting on WeChat. He had only said he had someone to treat, but hadn't said who. "It's almost time. I'll pick you up, of course. I don't have a car anymore." He had driven his car back to Xiancheng the last time he went home. He rarely used it in China. When necessary, it was faster to ride a bike or take the subway. He took Saoirse downstairs to wait for the car. This time, Yukai didn't interfere with Saoirse's outfit. She changed into jeans, a beige sweater, and a khaki jacket, which was quite appropriate for this weather. In an unfamiliar environment, Yukai could still hold her hand and walk with her as if they were taking a stroll. Otherwise, once she got familiar with the place, she would be running in front and Yukai would be chasing behind. "Is that the car?" Saoirse said, pointing to a Civic. "Yes." Yukai walked over. Sun Shang opened the car window with a surprised expression and asked, "Who is this beautiful woman? Why does she look a little familiar?" "My friend." The two got on the car, and Yukai greeted Josihu in the passenger seat. It was strange. Monkey had lasted 3 months without changing his girlfriend? When he was at his worst, he changed 3 times a month. Has he changed his face and become a new person? Josihu gave Yukai the impression of a homely woman who anyone who saw her would praise. Many girls actually hate being praised for being homely. It makes them feel like their lives are withering before they've even blossomed, much like cowboys who are honest feel the same way. "Hello." Sun Shang greeted Saoirse enthusiastically. The silly girl smiled and said, "Hello, you're Yukai's Chinese friend, right?" "I'm Saoirse." Sun Shang blinked and asked his girlfriend for help. Josihu chuckled, "Saoirse, you're so beautiful." "My name is Josihu, and this is Sun Shang." Sun Shang knew some basic English. After all, he was a graduate of a reputable university, but if you spoke it in a string, he wouldn't understand what it meant. Even if he knew every word, he wouldn't understand it when it was put together into a sentence. "Yukai wrote that song for you, right?" Josihu suddenly asked. She was talking about Galway Girl. "Yes, Yi is amazing. He drank a lot of wine, said he wanted to give me a song, and wrote it in a flash. If many of the lyrics weren't about what happened at night, I doubt it was written beforehand." Josihu pondered for a long time before understanding Saoirse's words. The English taught in China differs from the English used in everyday communication abroad, and even within English, there are many dialects. Saoirse did her best to use a London accent and spoke slowly. "So, do you really play violin in the band?" "Yes," Josihu complimented. "Violinists are always handsome and beautiful. It's the same at our school. Those who play this instrument are all idols." The two women then began chatting, even with a language barrier. "I think I should take the passenger seat," Yukai said to Sun Shang, who was driving. "Don't worry, you'll have another chance when we get back." Josihu was probably practicing her spoken English. There were few genuine foreigners in the school, and her Chinese was beginning to take on a tinge of slang. She must have been influenced by the northeastern students. She didn't realize that Irish English was a dialect that even the British couldn't understand. Practicing with Saoirse was a sign of Josihu finding someone to help her. She probably wouldn't understand anyone in China when she spoke English. The car pulled onto the ring road. Yukai realized a problem, so he asked, "Where are we going to eat today?" "We agreed on a big dinner. Don't try to fool us with a buffet." "How can that be?" Sun Shang looked at Saoirse in the rearview mirror and said, "Bringing back such a beautiful girl, I must take her to try authentic Sichuan cuisine." "But," Sun Shang laughed and said, "although it's not a buffet, It is also calculated per person 1,300 per person. How about it? I think it's good enough. Thanks to my lifelong loves Hufen, Dash, and MRHU for the rewards. I wanted to thank you once every 2 weeks, but with so many rewards, I'm afraid you will run away if I don't tell me earlier, haha. Everyone remember to vote for recommendations. Chapter 70 Black Pearl Restaurant. The sound of horns on the street brought Yukai back to his senses. He looked out the window at the scenery, which looked familiar. Monkey, are we almost at Kuante Alley? Sun Shuang replied vaguely, concentrating on finding a parking space. Almost, it's a little way ahead. As a landmark attraction in Chengdu, Kuante Alley is a must-see for tourists visiting the city. Its facade is a replica of an ancient courtyard with indigo bricks and tiles, making it one of the few large-scale ancient streets from the Qing dynasty in Chengdu. However, their destination today wasn't Kuante Alley, but a smaller street not far away, Changfa Street. After getting out of the car, Zhou Sihu walked a few steps forward and said, "This should be a residential area, right?" Yukai observed the surroundings and said confidently, "Be more confident. We should be there. This is a residential area. Monkey, are we eating here?" "Don't underestimate this residential area," Sun Shuang said, having just parked the car. "I haven't even been to the place I'm taking you to this time. I heard it's a Black Pearl 2 Diamond restaurant on a certain review website, the only one in Chengdu." Black Pearl. Yukai understood. He often looked up food on the website and was familiar with the rating system. Modeled after the Michelin star rating system, review websites categorize China's better restaurants into 3 levels, calling them China's Michelin-starred restaurants. Compared to Michelin-rated restaurants, Black Pearl clearly appealed more to Chinese tastes. Yukai was somewhat excited. However, the first step to enjoying a meal was definitely to enter the restaurant. They had already walked up and down the street twice and still couldn't find the entrance. I'll make a phone call." Sun Shuang gave up. The call connected quickly. Sun Shuang listened to the voice coming from the receiver and looked around, finally landing his gaze behind Yikai. After pushing the confused Yikai aside, he said, "Isn't it the black door with 2 knockers and 2 stone lions at the entrance?" After saying this, he stepped forward, grabbed the knocker, and knocked. "Here," Yikai said in surprise. They had passed this place 3 times and were still wondering who lived so stylishly. They had no idea that this was the restaurant they were looking for. It really was a place hidden in the city. The door opened, and a woman wearing a blue Republican era button-down dress with a small round collar opened the door and asked, "Are you the one who called just now?" "Yes," Sun Shuang said. "My last name is Sun." She made way and led the group inside, saying, "Come with me." The restaurant was not large, or rather very small. It was simply a 3-bedroom apartment converted into a restaurant, decorated with simple yet exquisite decorations throughout. This restaurant only accepts 1 table of guests per meal. Sun Shuang was lucky that his dinner reservation was cancelled and he didn't show up. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to book a table here a day in advance. They were taken to a room with 4 chairs. The wall was painted with ink-style lotus and black carp, which seemed to have an unusual texture. Yukai was a little curious and touched it with his hand, feeling a bumpy and unknown gelatin. It should be that after the painting was completed, pigments were used to add texture to the painting, making it look more realistic. If Yukai were to comment, it would be a bit out of place as a Chinese painting. Below the painting is a table with porcelain, which is made of the same style as the original wood of the dining table. On it are 2 somewhat exaggerated tableware. It is in the style of blue and white porcelain, but it has been made into tableware. The woman I had just seen entered the room, carrying dishes. She must have been the restaurant's waitress. She placed the appetizers on the table and said, "This is the appetizer and dessert." She placed them down and introduced them. Desserts are jam jelly and sweet potato pancakes. Appetizers include pickled pepper chicken feet, cumin charcoal grilled pork, rice pepper and black fungus, and crispy cashews. Please enjoy. The next dish will be here soon. Saoirse eagerly raised her fork and said to Yukai, "It looks great. Can I eat it?" "Of course I can." Yukai unceremoniously tasted the food. After all, the meals were served separately, and everyone had a limited portion. He took a little black fungus and found it had a sweet and sour taste. Overall, the flavor was similar to the pickled pepper and black fungus dishes sold elsewhere, but this one had a springier texture and a nice, chewy texture. "Delicious," Saoirse said, finishing the jelly in one bite. Yukai offered her his portion as well. The jelly was very small, about the size of their teacups, so even two girls could finish the entire dish in one bite. "What does it taste like?" Yukai asked. Saoirse, fork in hand, said without hesitation, "Sweet, delicious." The next dish arrived, and the waiter continued, "This is prawn multicolored noodles. The strange flavored sauce is poured over the noodles. You can enjoy the cold dishes later. I'll bring the hot dishes after you ring the bell." Yukai translated for Saoirse, then lifted the small cup and poured the sauce directly onto the noodles. The noodles looked like ordinary cold noodles, but as the name suggests, they were multicolored, with yellow, green, brown, and other colors. Still, there was very little, just a bite-sized portion. Sun Shang tasted them with exaggerated movements, glanced at the door, and whispered to Yukai, "Why do I feel like it tastes just like cold noodles?" Yukai placed the shelled clams on the noodles and ate them together. It was delicious, but too little. The wheat aroma was strong, and the noodles weren't just wheat. The multicolored colors were the result of the incorporation of other plant juices, not pigments. The sauce for the mixed noodles was somewhat similar to that used for sweetwater noodles, but surprisingly, it didn't taste of MSG. Instead, other ingredients enhanced the sauce's umami flavor. It seemed his palate had improved. Before, he couldn't have tasted so many different flavors. Perhaps, like Sun Shang, he thought it was just the taste of cold noodles. Seeing Saoirse enjoying her meal, Yukai felt his trip was worthwhile. The most important thing during this time was to keep Saoirse company. For a foreigner newly arrived in China, the meal was just beginning. After finishing his meal, he pressed the bell. The waiter brought 4 bowls of soup. "This is our signature dish, the Zhuogang Dadao golden silk noodles. The broth is made with simmered cabbage. Enjoy." Simmered cabbage. Even though Yukai didn't know much about food before, he had heard of simmered cabbage often. The broth was golden yellow, containing a small head of cabbage, but the silky noodles were the true star of the dish. After all, it was so famous that Yukai didn't taste it first. Instead, he held it up to his nose and sniffed the steam rising from the broth. It didn't have a strong smell, just a light fragrance, but the freshness of the chicken broth could still be smelled. Chapter 71, Kuantai Alley. Gently stirring the hair-thin noodles with chopsticks, a richer aroma wafted forth. But still, only a mouthful was enough. The golden noodles tasted like finely shredded pork, melting in the mouth. The rich, umami flavor was completely locked within the noodles, a rich, mellow aroma that was completely lost in the heat. Finishing the meal, he savored the invigorating chicken broth. The refreshing flavor was like a balloon of aroma, exploding through Yukai's heightened taste buds. He closed his eyes, tilted his head upward, and let out a hissing sound, letting the air flow through his throat. Finally, Yukai let go, releasing the remaining aroma. Everyone paused, startled by Yukai's gesture. Could it be so delicious? Saoirse blinked, then realized she was halfway through the golden noodles, the other half still in the broth. She glanced around, making sure no one was paying attention, and quickly shoveled the noodles into her mouth. "Excellent." She expressed herself in her broken Chinese. This dish appealed to foreign palates, evident in its status as a must-have at state banquets. And while it wasn't spicy, its refinement more closely resembled Cantonese cuisine. But truly, this was Sichuan cuisine. This dish was the Sichuan chef's way of proving that Sichuan cuisine wasn't just about spicy. Even Sun Shang began nodding his head. "It's a few thousand yuan," he exclaimed. "It's still quite something." This dish marked the beginning of the hot dishes. The next dish, Dujiangiant sturgeon caviar with shrimp parfait, was average. This was mainly because Yukai didn't like anything particularly fishy. The yellow croaker lion's head, a delicate dish containing a meatball, tasted like boneless yellow croaker, softer and more glutinous than the typical restaurant fish balls. The next dish was abalone. The 20 head abalone were small enough to be eaten in one bite. Yukai picked up the menu and quickly counted the items. There were a lot of dishes, more than a dozen. Otherwise, the portions wouldn't have been enough to fill anyone up. This way of serving dishes in layers made Yukai feel very much like Western food, but the ingredients and the quantity of each dish had the feeling of Japanese food. He had tasted relatively few delicacies, but this was indeed the impression this restaurant gave Yukai. Even so, the cuisine here was authentic Sichuan cuisine. As mentioned before, Sichuan cuisine is not just spicy, the soul of Sichuan cuisine is the seasoning, and Yukai could see the chef's meticulousness from the sauces of these dishes. After more than an hour, all the dishes were wiped out. This meal included precious ingredients such as bird's nest, abalone, sea cucumber, and golden noodles, coupled with the chef's superb cooking skills and techniques, which at least made Yikai feel that the several $1,000s were not wasted. As for what the person who paid for it was thinking, Yikai had no idea. Before leaving, Yikai met the head chef, Master Lan, a very blessed old Chinese man. Sun Shang drove over and suggested, "How about we go sing a little?" "Forget it," Yikai said. "Let's go home and get some rest. We just got back and need to adjust to the jet lag, and we haven't rested well." Saoirse was almost asleep. Yikai really wanted to see Saoirse, full of energy and youth. The car drove silently. Before it was completely dark, the neon lights were already on. Cars were everywhere, and people were hard to find. This is how the new district is, everyone is in a hurry, a stark contrast to the pace of old Chengdu. "They've arrived." Yikai gently pushed Saoirse and said, "Wake up, we're home. Let's get out of the car." He helped Saoirse open the car door on the other side. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and got out, saying goodbye to the new friends she had met today. "Bye, son, Joe, see you another day." After the car drove away, Yikai asked, "How is it? Can you walk on your own? You dare to underestimate me?" Saoirse forced herself to fight Yikai. "You give the order, and see who gets home first. I don't believe you'll run to the elevator and not wait for me." Yikai sneered, bent down, and picked up Saoirse. "Ah. Shut up. The effects of jet lag vary from person to person. After 2 or 3 days in China, Saoirse still suffered from insomnia at night and daytime sleepiness, but fortunately, she didn't develop more serious symptoms such as headaches and tinnitus. However, after 2 days, Saoirse could no longer sit still and strongly requested Yikai to take her out to play. "I'm going crazy if I don't go out." "Okay, you won't accompany me, right? I'll go by myself." She pouted and raised her head. Humph. She was not as tolerant as Yikai. At most, she could practice violin and guitar at home for 2 consecutive days. As she spent more time at home, she became more and more eager to go out and play. After shutting down his computer, Yikai picked up his windbreaker and sighed. "I just thought you were feeling unwell and needed more rest. If you want to go out, go ahead. I'll take you to explore our ancient Chinese town." Saoirse's face instantly lit up with a smile. "That's good enough. You should have taken me out a long time ago. I'm going crazy." He went out and downstairs. Now a man without a car or a house, Yikai relied on the subway and taxis for transportation. But line 4 was always crowded and far from his house, so he called a Didi on his phone. Yikai wanted to take her to Kuantai Alley. He had been to this place once before. For locals or those who had worked there for years, Kuantai Alley held no appeal. Like most tourist attractions, it was a scam. But in terms of atmosphere, Kuantai Alley managed to condense the culture of old Chengdu into a single street. The car parked outside the Kuantai Alley subway station. From the outside, Kuantai Alley looked like any other pedestrian street, but inside, it was different. The streets were lined with neat, wide, blue stone slabs. Yikai has been to several ancient towns, and Kuantai Alley is the one that impressed him the most. After entering, you can see a large map introducing Kuantai Alley. Yikai translated it to Saoirse. "This is where officials from the Qin dynasty lived hundreds of years ago. One of the streets was for officials, one street was for soldiers, and there was another street, a total of 3. Not knowing how to explain the word hutong, just translate it normally, they all mean the same thing." Saoirse nodded and walked forward, her spirits lifted. She had never seen such a building before, and there was very little information about China that could be found on the internet. "Wow, this is so beautiful. Is this your ancient building? This is also very interesting. Take a picture for me," she said while standing in front of a bronze statue. The bronze statue suddenly closed its fan and said in English, "Beauty, 20 yuan for a picture." Chapter 72 Tragedy Caused by a Monkey. Shops, restaurants, handicraft shops, tea houses, a dazzling array of goods, fragrant snacks, and, of course, unique ear cleaning shops. Visitors will never feel bored while strolling the streets. Chengdu's emphasis on a slow-paced lifestyle is its greatest draw. Unlike other more commercialized ancient towns, even the most crowded Kuantai alleys are filled with people leisurely sipping tea and chatting in tea houses. For Saoirse, while the goods and quality here might not be as high-end as Grafton Street in Ireland, The atmosphere of civic life here is unmatched anywhere else abroad. Ding, ding, ding. The successive clangs of bronze bells captivated Saoirse. Regardless of the crowds gathered ahead to watch, she cried out her apologies, pushing them aside. Seeing she was a foreigner, the onlookers let her go. Yukai felt uneasy, forcing his way forward despite the glares from those around him. Fortunately, he wore a mask to conceal his face, allowing him to remain shameless for the time being. This was a shop, with a sign that read Tang San Pao. The shop was large, with a center area converted into a production area and performance space. A long table separated the tourists and the chefs, upon which steaming hot snacks were placed. The chef plucked a glutinous rice ball the size of a ping-pong ball and tossed it onto the gong in front of him. The ball bounced and landed in a dustpan filled with sesame powder. Someone else would remove the rice balls from the dustpan, place them in a paper bowl, and drizzle them with sugar syrup. There were 3 to bowl, and they cost 10 yuan each. Saoirse instinctively searched her pockets. But she didn't have any Chinese currency, so she approached Yukai. "I'll exchange some money with you. There are so many things I want. You don't even speak Chinese, how can you buy anything? I'll go buy it. You just stand here and don't move." This item, so rare among outsiders, is called hot glutinous rice cake in Sichuan province. In Yukai's hometown of Xiancheng, it can be bought for 2 or 3 yuan, filling a small bowl. Here, it's not only expensive, but also scarce. That's why Yukai avoids such commercial attractions when he travels. He preferred to discover and explore, feeling that this was the true joy of travel. After buying some snacks, Yukai looked back and saw Saoirse was no longer in her usual spot. A chill ran down his spine, and after squeezing through the crowd, he found Saoirse standing by the roadside, waiting for him. Yukai handed her the food and said, "You scared me to death. With so many people, how could we possibly stand in one place? I'd rather come out and wait for you. That way, you'll see me once you're out of the crowd." Saoirse laughed and took the paper bowl. The wide alley was only a few hundred meters long, and at the end was the narrow alley. Turning the corner, the once bustling crowd dwindled by half. The wide alley had plenty of snacks, while this area was more about art. Saoirse was watching someone get their ears cleaned. "Want to try?" Yukai asked. No, Saoirse shook her head quickly. Just watching was enough. The thought of sitting there and watching someone put a pointy object in her ear sent chills down her spine, and she scurried away, her neck twitching. Kuanzhe Alley supports countless people who make their livings from Chengdu's traditional crafts. Ear cleaning is certainly renowned nationwide, but this alley boasts more than just these few skilled artisans. Some young women, dressed in traditional Chinese clothing, struck something resembling a wooden fish, producing a sound similar to yankin. Large crowds gathered to watch. This proved that many Chinese traditions have indeed been passed down through generations, though simply haven't been fully developed. Saoirse felt incredibly happy. She ate, sari in her left hand, a sweet sugar painting in her right, and gazed around at these ancient relics of China. A man holding a small monkey noticed what she was holding and offered it to Saoirse, saying, "Girl, this monkey is so cute. It doesn't bite. Do you want to hold it?" His words were a question, but his actions were actually forcing the monkey into Saoirse's hands. Saoirse took 2 steps back, but didn't shy away. She embraced the monkey and turned to Yukai for help. She was still confused. Why did someone keep giving her monkeys? "When did you get them?" Yukai exclaimed in surprise. The two of them were only 2 or 3 meters apart, and Yukai couldn't possibly stare at Saoirse the entire time. He had just finished watching a woman in opera costume perform when he turned around and saw Saoirse holding a monkey. "I don't know," she said. She gestured to the middle-aged man beside her. "He keeps offering me the monkey. What's his intention? Didn't I tell you not to accept anything offered to you?" Yukai grabbed the monkey with one hand, like he was carrying a cat. Ignoring its squawking, he placed it back at the man's feet and said, "Thank you, brother. We're not interested in monkeys." He turned to leave, but the monkey's owner was incredibly agile and grabbed Yukai's wrist. Despite his age, he held his hand tightly. It would have been easy to get rid of him, but Yukai was afraid of hurting him. Then he spoke, 20 yuan for a photo. You can't refuse to pay. We rural people can only do small businesses like this. You young people have a lot of money, so 20 yuan is nothing. When did we take photos? And why should I give it to you if I have money?" Saoirse saw something was amiss and stepped forward, asking, what's going on? What happened? This is a scammer, Yukai said in English. They're forcing monkeys on tourists and then demanding payment. I don't want to pay them right now, that's all. What? Saoirse's eyes widened. Yukai wanted to break free and just walk away. They wouldn't dare chase him, at most they'd just curse at him. Let him go. Saoirse suddenly rushed over from a distance and kicked the man in the chest, sending him flying. This. Yukai pointed at the man lying on the ground, a look of disbelief on his face. Saoirse grabbed Yukai's hand and shouted, "Run!" The crowd of onlookers immediately made way for the two men and continued to gather around the man lying on the ground, pointing and commenting. Is he okay? Someone asked. The monkey owner clutched his chest and yelled, "Something's happening. Catch them. They're hiding people. Foreigners are hitting people. It hurts so much, ouch. Foreigners are hitting Chinese people. It seems alright. Should we call the police?" His friend immediately pulled the man away, saying, "Are you stupid? Why call the police? People like that are so disgusting. At least if you take a photo with a bronze statue, people will ask, and if you don't, no one will bother you. But these monkey owners are purely extorting people." Seeing no one to help him, he clutched his chest, stood up, and spat violently in the direction the two people ran. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone with a partner. Those without a partner are fine, because there's no tea picking either. Seeking recommendations, rewards, collections, and investments. Chapter 73 Fairy Duck. Saoirse had a good memory and led Yukai out of Kawansei Alley and back to where they had gotten off the bus. Panting, she glanced back and asked Yukai, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Yukai waved his hand. "Why did you hit him? We could have just left. He wouldn't have dared to do anything with so many people around. I saw he was holding on to you, thinking you couldn't get away. I got anxious and..." At this point, Saoirse realized this wasn't Ireland anymore. Her tone darkened. "So, if I hide him, was that a problem?" Yukai shook his head. "It shouldn't be a problem. Monkeys are protected animals in our country, and it's illegal for him to keep them privately, so he won't cause us any trouble." Seeing Saoirse's dejection, he joked, "With his size, I could lift him up with one hand. You wouldn't have to do anything." Saoirse. "Anyway, at least he's okay." Saoirse breathed a sigh of relief, shrugs off Yukai's words. "How powerful can you be? Without me, you don't know how much longer you'd be harassed by that guy." After this incident, the two of them couldn't go back to Kawansei Alley. What if the monkey owner had his own gang? Would that be a trap? Yukai hailed a passing taxi on the highway. After getting in, he said to Saoirse, "I don't know if you can still eat." "I'm hungry anyway." "Not really, but I can still eat." Although the meal Sun Shang had treated them to was delicious, aside from the red oil dumplings, there were no particularly spicy dishes. Yukai had always felt that Sichuan cuisine lacks soul without spice. It wasn't that Yukai particularly liked spicy food, but he always felt that Sichuan cuisine tasted better with more chili. It wasn't just outsiders who had stereotypes about Sichuan cuisine, even Sichuan natives like Yukai sometimes shared this sentiment. The main reason was that Sichuan home-cooked dishes, whether mapo tofu or shredded pork with green peppers, were always spicy. And the boiled cabbage and steamed yellow croaker lions head dishes they had that day were too high-end and hard to find on a regular basis, Yukai said. "There's a restaurant I'd really like to visit. It's a great opportunity for you to sample our local cuisine. Big brother, could you please take us to Longquin Restaurant?" "An old one?" the driver asked. "Yes, it is. Longquin Restaurant has been rooted in Chengdu for a century and has since grown into a major restaurant chain with franchises throughout Sichuan province, encompassing both high-end restaurants and more casual eateries. The old branch is the main branch of Longquin Restaurant, located near Chengdu's East Gate. Its decor hasn't changed in a century, with only renovations and regular maintenance. With so many internet-famous restaurants these days, Yukai predicted it would soon become a popular check-in spot. Half an hour later, they arrived. Since the restaurant hadn't moved from its original location, there were no commercial streets surrounding it. Instead, it was directly accessible via the highway onto the ramp that led into the hotel parking lot. The building resembled the ancient inns you see on TV, with a couplet etched on the entrance, "You know, a pot of wine from Shuzhou can bring thousands of people to the divine ship." Entering the hotel, the lobby was packed, with diners chatting and drinking at the 8-person table. To the right of the entrance was a stage, currently being performed by opera actors. A blackboard stood to one side of the stage, inscribed with the name of the opera and the main actors. Liu Yinji? Yukai had little knowledge of opera, and had no idea what the play was about. Just then, a waiter noticed someone entering and approached, asking, "Hello, how many people are there?" "Just the two of us." "Are there any seats upstairs?" "Yes, follow me." The waiters here were all women, wearing red Cheongsam-style dresses. Perhaps they hadn't been carefully selected, as all the waiters had similar figures. Some say the Cheongsam best reveals a woman's elegance, though the truth is debatable, but it certainly does show off a woman's figure. Saoirse snorted, and Yukai immediately looked up at the ceiling. The stairs to the second floor were in the center of the hall, directly opposite the stage. Upstairs, there were 2 tables on each side, both next to the second floor railing, for a total of 4. Further in, the areas were divided into private rooms, designated with names like A, B, C, D, etc. to distinguish them. The second floor was convenient for watching and listening to opera, and there was more space between tables, unlike downstairs where tables sometimes sat back to back. "Hello, here's the menu." Yukai took the menu and glanced at the dishes, pointing to them. Fairy duck, mapo tofu, boiled cabbage, red apricot eel with vermicelli, stir-fried seasonal vegetables, that's all. The boiled cabbage truly amazed Yukai. A single bowl of soup wasn't enough, and seeing this dish here, Yukai wanted to try it again. The last time he was here, he sat downstairs for a company dinner, and naturally, the dishes were homely. The total cost of these dishes was over 1,000 yuan, but the portions were generous, especially the vermicelli dish, which was practically a whole bowl. Yukai tore off a piece of the fairy duck with his chopsticks and placed it in Saoirse's bowl. "Try it and see how it tastes." Saoirse had eaten a lot of snacks in Kuante Alley, but the sight of the fairy duck still made her drool. She eagerly devoured the meat Yukai had placed in her bowl. Delicious, delicious. These were the few Chinese words she had learned. Fairy duck is a famous dish, available in both Shandong and Sichuan cuisines. Longquin Restaurant's fairy duck has been refined by the chef, and its recipe is nowhere to be found in any cookbook. The perfectly sized whole duck has a candied color. The rich sauce, poured onto the dish after serving, is still slowly flowing from the duck to the plate. The flow rate suggests its viscosity. Not to mention Saoirse, Yukai himself was also incredibly hungry, taking a bite. The duck meat was incredibly smooth, not at all dry or tough. During the steaming process, it perfectly absorbed the sauce, melting in the mouth. A hint of bacon and smoky flavors also enhanced the dish's flavor. The boiled cabbage wasn't as delicious as the broth from the golden silk noodles. It wasn't that the chef's cooking was poor, the broth didn't have any off flavors. It was simply that the hotel chef wasn't as dedicated as the private chef. When dining in a place like this, the dishes may not be so exquisite, but the portions are large and filling, and the 2 people obviously enjoyed the meal more than the private dishes. At this time, a group of people came out of the kitchen not far away. One of them was a foreigner holding a dish. After looking around the restaurant, he walked towards Yukai and the others. "Excuse me," he said in English. "It's okay." Yukai wiped his mouth with a napkin and said, "Excuse me." Behind the foreigner, a large group of people appeared. Some of them were wearing vests and holding cameras, and some were holding notebooks and recording something. There was another person that Yukai felt familiar. After thinking about it carefully, he thought it should be Mr. Zhang Dajin, the chef of Longquin Restaurant. Thanks to Morganstone, MRHU, Trouble Plus One, Julian Abs, UV Yen, and others for their rewards. There are too many, so I will not thank them one by one, otherwise you will say I talk too much. The collection has decreased in the past 2 days, and the recommendation has also decreased. Please give some recommendations. Chapter 74 Farewell. The foreigner placed his plate on the table, revealing a piece of beef. It wasn't the typical steak of Western cuisine, but rather the size of a Chinese pork shoulder. "Hello, I'm French chef Raymond Rupert," he introduced himself, then explained to Yukai, "I'm filming a French food documentary and came to Chengdu to exchange culinary skills with Chef Zhang." Rupert gestured at the dish he had set down and said, "I was inspired by the magical duck and created this new version of beef stew in red wine. I'd like to invite you to try it." Enjoying a meal prepared by a French chef for free is a rare opportunity in Chengdu. And a chef who can appear on a show is certainly not unknown. "I'd love to," But why did you choose us? Yukai asked. Handsome men and beautiful women attract attention anywhere, he shrugged, adding, besides, this woman is Western. This is a cultural exchange between China and the West, so you're the perfect person to participate. Saoirse smiled and said, then I'll start. While she wasn't very good with chopsticks, she was definitely adept with a knife and fork. Fix the beef with a fork, and gently cut the knife to take out a piece of beef. Yukai also picked up the fork and pressed it lightly on the beef. The tender beef was pressed into a groove, and the sauce was squeezed out of the beef. It's very tender, Yukai said. The camera kept giving close-ups of the beef. To be honest, the appearance of this dish is really beautiful, not inferior to the fairy duck before it was eaten. Yukai also made a cut, took out a small piece of beef, put it in his mouth and chewed it gently. The beef is very tender, and it has a chewy texture when bitten. The sauce overflows, and the rich taste gives the food more layers of taste to a great extent. Chinese sauce is a lot of red wine added. Yukai read it out and took another bite. How is it? Rupert asked. Yukai nodded, and the camera immediately turned to Yukai. The sauce and beef are so well integrated. Shouldn't the beef be steamed first and then boiled? The steaming process uses Chinese sauce, a small amount of lemon, and honey, and then, using traditional Western cooking techniques, it's simmered in red wine for over half an hour. Rupert glanced back at Chef Zhang, then at Yukai's face, then back at Chef Zhang. Are you sure you're not a shill? Is every Chinese person a gourmet? He applauded Yukai, surprised. Amazing. You got it right. How did you know my cooking process? It's simple. Yukai cut open a slice of beef with a knife and explained, because the flavors of honey and lemon are infused into the dish, they must have been steamed with the beef from the very beginning. The mismatch between the Chinese sauce and the red wine is completely overshadowed by the honey and lemon. Saoirse was about to blurt out delicious, but Yukai held it back. When did you become so knowledgeable about food? Anyone with a doubled or tripled palate would, like Yukai, appreciate the various flavors in a dish. What's bland and what's savory? The seasoning of any dish is layered, allowing Yukai to appreciate the preparation of the food through its layers and textures. If he had twice as much talent, perhaps Yukai would be able to discern the ingredients used in each layer, such as the amount of salt or pepper used. Not only Rupert, but even Longquan Restaurant's head chef, Zhang Dajin, was stunned. Did you really just peek in on our cooking? Rupert grew serious. What's your profession? My name is Yukai, and I'm a travel photographer. Regardless of whether he made money from photography or not, Yukai considered himself a photographer. It was a prestigious profession, and with his travelogues, no one would object. So you're a photographer? I'm a French Michelin-starred chef who runs a restaurant in Burgundy, France. I hope you'll visit my restaurant someday. After exchanging contact information, the two proceeded to the next step, as they were filming a show. Saoirse stared at the beef on the table and said to Yukai, honey, how much would a dish like this cost at a Michelin restaurant? Yukai put Rupert's contact information away and said, I think it's at least 800 yuan, right? This dish didn't look cheap, from the ingredients to the preparation process. And since the chef was a Michelin-starred chef, the price might have increased. The bill came to 1,420 yuan, with a braised beef and red wine being a free gift. Both of them were very full and hailed a Didi taxi, choosing a destination near their home. The park had a large pond. It was stocked with carp, and security guards were always on duty to keep it that way, otherwise someone would occasionally catch one to cook for themselves. Yukai bought some fish food at the nearby supermarket and handed it to Saoirse. Just sprinkle it on the water. The food floated on the surface, and soon a large group of carp swarmed in, vying for the food. So many fish. Saoirse said, waving her hands a few times, finishing off the fish feed. Chengdu only had a few interesting places, and it would take a few days to explore them all. So after visiting the giant panda research and conservation center to see the pandas, Yukai and his companions headed to the set of Chinese Paladin. Yukai didn't understand filmmaking, and the most taboo in any industry is an amateur directing the experts. So they only spent 2 days on the set to see the new world before calling it a day. The main reason was that Saoirse's visa in China had expired. The easiest way to get a long-term visa would be for her to marry Yukai, but Saoirse was adamant about marriage. So if they wanted to see each other more often, Yukai would have to consider obtaining visa-free travel documents for multiple countries. With Christmas approaching, The temperature in China dropped even lower, and both of them bundled up in warmer clothes. Yukai was going to take Saoirse to Hong Kong Island to catch the flight back to Ireland. "I don't need you to send me off." Saoirse walked in front with a helpless expression. After 2 steps, she turned back and said to Yukai, "Am I going to kindergarten, Daddy? Why don't you send me directly to Ireland?" Yukai stroked his chin and pondered, "It's not impossible. Please." Saoirse covered her forehead. This man was good in every way, but he was too stubborn sometimes. Others would at most send them to the airport, but he wanted to send them to the connecting airport. "You still want to send them directly home?" Saoirse was sulking, but Yukai laughed and said, "I'm kidding. I won't send you home. I have other things to do in Hong Kong Island." Chapter 75 Africa. Yukai hadn't lied to Saoirse. He had 2 things to do in Hong Kong. One, of course, was to get Saoirse on the plane to Ireland. That was just a side job. Saoirse was more adaptable than he was, so she didn't need a pickup on the plane back to Ireland. His second goal was to join the Wildlife Conservation Society. After becoming unemployed, Yukai's only ambition was to travel the world with his camera, but visas to other countries were a constant concern. He had to find a way to get a work visa that allowed him to travel to most countries. Using just a tourist visa was too much of a hassle. Yukai had been researching for the past few days before discovering the possibility of international organizations. The Wildlife Conservation Society is a subsidiary of the Nature Conservancy, and core members can obtain UN-recognized work visas, allowing them to enter most UN countries. The society recruits many volunteers every year. Photographers, especially those who can write, are in short supply among the volunteers. After all, not every photographer is a caring person. Volunteers don't earn any income, and the photographer profession is quite expensive. Despite these challenges, the photographer's work within the society offers a lot of freedom. Take the required photos and upload them to the association, and your job is done. The prerequisite is that the quality of the photos must be guaranteed, at least touching. Yukai wanted to try volunteering first. The Animal Protection Association's relaxed management of photographers naturally made Yukai very fond of them. Huashia's branch is located in Hong Kong Island, which is why Yukai came to Hong Kong Island. In a building in Victoria Harbour, Yukai met Rachel, the head of the Asia region. She was an American woman in her 30s, with blonde hair tied back and wearing a shirt, looking neat and tidy. Rachel flipped through Yukai's travelogue and said, "We're in need of photographers who can write articles, but do you really want to join? Volunteers don't earn any money, I have to tell you that up front." "Of course I know volunteers don't earn any money. Isn't that obvious? The royalties from this book are enough for me to live freely for a while. I think it's a good idea to do what I love." Rachel closed the book and smiled. "I'm glad you understand. I've met many people who think we're rich." Yukai had previously learned everything he wanted to know online. He asked Rachel everything he wanted to know and only signed the certificate after confirming it. "You have joined an animal protection organization. All animals have an initial affinity for UX3. You are about to get a job as a photographer. You now have a better understanding of photography." After signing, Rachel's smile widened. Just looking at Yukai's information and the photos he had taken was enough to prove that he was a very capable photographer. Rachel picked up a set of documents from the table and said, "Normally, volunteers stay abroad for 6 months, so photographers' assignments are about 6 months apart. If it's convenient for you, there's something here. I'm busy lately." Yukai took the document. It was data on African elephant poaching. In recent years, countries have begun banning the killing of wild animals, but precisely because of these bans, the price of ivory has risen. Now, more African elephants are being killed for their ivory. Rachel sighed, leaning back on the table, and said, "The more the bans are, the more crazy these people become. We've sent people to Africa to establish a conservation base. Your purpose is to film the current situation and, ideally, write a report." Perhaps fearing that Yukai would find it dangerous and refuse, Rachel continued, "You'll just stay at the base and won't have to face poachers." Yukai nodded and said, "I'd like to go, but I need to buy some more equipment." Since photography technology has advanced by leaps and bounds thanks to the system, Yukai needed more equipment to realize his ideas. Moreover, photographing animals in Africa requires a lens that can capture distant views, as it's difficult to get too close. In flight. Discover a new region, Zambia, reward of 300,000 yuan, English as a reward, No indigenous languages? After landing, Yukai calculated the flight time. From the time he left the hotel to the African continent, it took a total of 20 hours, longer than flying to Ireland. Landing was in the morning in Zambia. Yukai had slept in the plane, so he arrived in Africa relatively refreshed. Arriving with Yukai were 3 Chinese volunteers, pure animal protectionists, unlike those who scrounged for visas like Yukai. Yukai disembarked with his own suitcase, carrying another. Inside was a suitcase containing a camera, lenses, and a small drone. "It's so desolate here," said one of the 3 volunteers, Chen Zhai, a recent college graduate in his 20s. The other 2 had been members of animal protection associations for a long time. The chubby one was Song Liang, and the other was a tanned, yellow-skinned man named Hong Wenlin. Hong Wenlin, carrying his large bag, said, "You get used to it. Let's go, someone's waiting outside to pick us up." Anyone who's seen a grain drying yard in rural China would likely understand what this airport looks like. It was like a drying yard magnified 100-fold. There were no walls around it, and as far as the eye could see, mountains stretched out. The terminal building in the distance was a row of low-slung houses, clearly worn from years of use. "Is it like this all over Africa?" Yukai asked. "No, the rest of Zambia is pretty good. This place is closer to the grasslands, and it's one of Zambia's marginal cities, so having an airport is a plus," Song Liang replied with a smile. Both he and Hong Wenlin had a lot of luggage, which made Yukai a little worried about not bringing enough essentials. Exiting the airport corridor, the exterior looked a bit more modern. Many people waiting to meet them stood outside the guardrails. In the distance was a large parking lot, packed with cars, all of them of good quality. Yukai didn't see any cars under 200,000 yuan, they were almost all SUVs. The scenery mirrored what Yukai had seen in the snowy region. In more challenging environments, sedans become much less practical, and the vehicles used are all sturdy off-road vehicles. A black man held a sign emblazoned with a logo of a wildlife conservation organization, along with Hong Wenlin's English name. Both Hong Wenlin and the black man smiled broadly when they met. If they hadn't been carrying so much luggage, a hug would have been a must. "My grades have been fluctuating lately, and I've been feeling a bit nervous these past couple of days while picking tea. Worried about my grades, my writing hasn't been very smooth these past few days. Sigh. I'm tired. I've decided not to read the comments." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.